Operator Marvin Bryant for cutting up her clothes and vandalizing her car in a fit of jealous rage.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom. Now, this is case number 370 on the calendar in the matter of Gibson versus Bryant. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Oh, I see we have a little show and tell here. Miss Gibson, according to your complaint, you and the defendant have 2 children together?
Yes, ma'am.
And on 2 separate occasions, the defendant, for no reason at all, went nuts, destroyed some of your property. In July, he destroyed your clothes and a bed, and then again in November, you say he damaged your car. Mr. Bryant says he did neither.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Judge. Yes.
You don't live together, is that right?
Correct.
How old are your children?
7 and 8.
When was the last time you lived together?
92, 93, up until about 2001.
From what I gather, after you stopped living together, you still had a civil relationship because he would watch the kids when you worked.
Well, I went to school.
Or went to school. Now, what happened on this day in July? You want to tell me about it?
Well, on July the 12th, me and him was supposed to be getting back together. The next day, he went out and I went out. So on July the 14th, about 5 that morning, he called me on my cell phone. And he asked me where was I at. And I told him...
Where was he when he called you on the cell phone?
He had just left the club. And I guess he had came over to my apartment, but I wasn't there. Well, by the time I got home, his car was out there. And when I got upstairs, I saw where he had kicked my door in, but I thought by that time he had calmed down because on the phone he was telling me, you need to get here and whatever.
Was he in your apartment when you got home?
Yes, ma'am, he was.
Is that right, sir?
No, it's not, ma'am. I haven't been in her apartment. I was not in her apartment in July at all. The only time I've been in that apartment was when the kids started school, which was in late August, early September. And I would go over there and drop the kids off until she got out of school.
Go ahead.
He asked me where I had been, and he said he know I had been with the guy that I had been seeing. And so, you know, he was just talking, and he ripped my clothes off that I had on at that time or whatever. And he was just saying, you know, women, that's why a lot of women like you are in the grave for doing this. He said, I hurt him. He said that rather than killing me or doing something bad to me, that he would take it out on my clothes. So he went to the back and started tearing up my clothes. And
let me see what he did.
He took scissors and cut up my clothes.
What else did he do?
And I have pictures here and evidence where he ripped my bed up, the poles off my bed.
Okay. And he eventually left?
He was still tearing up my stuff. At the time, one of my friends was living with me, and she came home, and she calmed him down, and eventually he left.
You didn't report this to the police, did you?
No, ma'am, I didn't report it to the police because my phone, I don't have a phone now.
Don't give me an excuse. You didn't, is the reason. You didn't.
Right, I didn't.
There came a time in November when you say you had another incident with Mr. Bryant. You want to tell me about the other incident?
Well, prior to that, before that, I put him on child support, and he's upset about that situation. Well, November the 6th, I go to school. It was a Wednesday, and that night I go to school from 6 to 9:50. Well, I called him when I got out of class and told him I was on my way to have the kids ready. Because
so he was babysitting for you?
Yes, ma'am.
So I assume you had patched up whatever differences that you had so that you were still now on speaking terms again after the July incident. Is that right?
Because he started paying me for this. He paid me like $200.
Oh, he did?
We're at a...
Shh. What do you mean he paid you $200?
He gave me $200, but...
To cover your clothes?
Well, no, he was supposed to keep on paying me.
Was that supposed to be for the clothes that he destroyed?
Right.
Okay.
So I called him when I got out of class and told him that, you know, I was out of class to have the kids ready. So when I got there, they weren't ready. So I went in and I asked him, you know, where are the kids? He said they're back there in their room. So he said he needed to talk to me. So I entered his bedroom and we started talking, and he asked me why was I putting him on child support. And I told him it's nothing to talk about, you know, because it's already taken care of.
Who was supporting you at that time?
He was giving me $100 every 2 weeks. My 2 kids attend tutoring.
$100 every 2 weeks doesn't make it. Were you working?
Yes, I work.
What kind of work were you doing?
I'm a secretary one at Department of Education, Special Education.
So you were working and going to school?
Yes, ma'am.
You working full time?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Go ahead.
Well, he was saying that why am I putting him on child support or whatever, and started talking about some other issues about my personal life and whatever not. And then he started teasing me about I had a fight with this girl, and he said he beat me up, and I told him, you don't know what went on because you wasn't there. And so, you know, he was like, yeah, you got yourself whooped or whatever. And I made a statement that made him upset. I said, well, we'll see what you gonna do when they start taking out for child support. And that's when he really went crazy on me and pushed me out of his house and jumped on me or whatever. Then when I got at the door, I called him out of his name, and it really upset him, so he came out the door and pushed me onto my car. And I got in the car, and I was so nervous and upset till I accidentally put the car in the wrong gear, and it hit his car. And he came out trying to put my kids in the car, but I was afraid that he was going to jump on me again, so I locked the doors. And at that time, as you see, I got a picture where he my little rearview mirror.
You pulled the rearview mirror off.
He hit it.
Where were your children?
He had woke them up, and they were outside.
They were outside seeing all this?
Tell them where they were.
They saw the end part of it.
Tell them where they were.
Where were they? Where were they, sir?
Right beside me when she tried to run me over with the car, and all of us had to run out the way.
So you did have an argument with her at that
Yes, we did have an argument.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He's still sleeping with me.
If you know he's got somebody new, he's got a new child, and you allow yourself to be suckered in,
Right.
that's your fault.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Crystal Gibson says the father of her children, Marvin Bryant, cut up her clothes and vandalized her car. Marvin says Crystal is making up a story.
I want to know something, sir. I read your answer very carefully. You claim that you got an order of protection, a protective order against her two weeks ago. Tell me about that.
Well, we did get into an argument. It was not about child support. Child support has been pending since August, July, and why would I wait till November to say something about it? It was not about child support. The argument was about, my kids told me about a lot of activity that's going on at her house, and I told her.
Okay. Now, when you say you got an order of protection, was that after a trial? Did you have a hearing?
Yes, we did.
You did have a trial?
Yes, we went to court for the order of protection.
You have a copy of that
Yes,
order
I
of
do.
protection? I'd like to see it, please. All right. So that both of you were present before the circuit court judge, and the court excluded you from his place of business, the court excluded you from his residence. That order of protection is good for 1 year.
Yes, ma'am, he did.
You didn't tell me you did anything wrong.
I didn't do anything.
Well, then how come you think that the judge gave him an order of protection?
Because I was nervous when we went to court and didn't understand what she was saying. She asked me, did I read the petition? I said, yes, ma'am, I did. She asked me, did I agree? I said, yes, ma'am, I did. But I was nervous and didn't understand at that point in time.
I see. Well, then I can't hear your complaints about anything that happened in November, madam. And I don't understand what you're talking about in this stuff in July. I don't think you would have been here but for the fact that he got this protective order against you. That's what I think. Tell me about the damage that was done, sir, to her bed.
I don't know anything about the bed. I was not in her house to do any damage to her bed. She's been obsessed with me ever since I found a new girlfriend. I have a child by my new girlfriend, and she's been harassing us ever since we've been involved. She come to her house, try to bust her windows, try to kick her door down. I opened the door, she hit me with a cell phone maybe 15 to 20 times. I wouldn't do anything. We called the police to her house, but she was gone by that time, so they didn't do anything. I didn't pursue that. Then on the issue of the night about the order of protection, when she ran my car, she did not accidentally put the car in drive. Drive is 3 gears down, reverse is 1 gear down.
Right.
So she ran my car. I went out to look at my car. As I was walking off, she hit me with her car.
What kind of damage did you have done to your car?
She didn't do much damage to my car. My car has a iron, like metal bumper, so it didn't do much to my car. And if it did, I wouldn't be trying to sue her for it because we have kids together. I don't want to take anything from my kids.
How much child support are you paying now, sir?
Well, they haven't set the court hasn't set an establishment yet. As she was stating, I was paying $200 a month, but when
Okay, what kind of work do you do?
I'm a computer network control operator.
How much do you earn?
30 grand a year.
You two folks have 2 children together,
Yes, ma'am.
and you've never been married. I assume that's because you weren't big on commitment, but having 2 children is a commitment. And then you move right along, Mr. Bryant, and have a new girlfriend and a new child.
Exactly.
That he's not sure about, but he go out and get an attorney because...
No. What I'm saying to you is, it's time to start thinking like a grown-up.
Exactly.
If you have children, usually people get married and they
Right.
decide to have a family, and then they have one child and they see how they can manage that, and then they have another child if they want to. You don't test out the waters by having baby. What you usually do is you try to see if your relationship works,
Exactly.
so that you don't send kids all over the place. They spend some time with you, some time with their mother. Kids have seen a lot of violence based upon what you both tell me, which is not a good thing for children. In any event, Ms. Gibson, you're not entitled to any money. Period. I don't believe that you put your car in drive by accident, and neither did the judge who heard the case involving the application for his protective order against you. Have you been bothering him and his new girlfriend?
In the past,
That's it. No, not right now. Right now you're here. In the past, of course in the past. Why? Why?
because he's still sleeping with me.
That's your fault.
True.
If you know he's got somebody new, and he's got a new child, and you allow yourself to be suckered in,
Right.
that's your fault. He's a man. You're supposed to think more of yourself. You're supposed to say, I'm not going to let him use me. Right?
That's what I come to say, and that's why he's harassing me now.
He's not harassing you now. No. And don't do it after today either. You living with your new girlfriend?
No, I'm not.
So what do you do? Just have girlfriends, have babies, and live by yourself?
No, that's not it.
What do you, well, clearly.
Well, I'm not living with her right now because we're just, I mean, I lived with her for a while and that didn't work out. I don't want to make the same mistake with this one.
That's why you don't have a child until you make up your mind.
Well, exactly, I understand that.
Exactly, I understand.
Things happen. I mean, it's
Listen,
not like I sit out and plan that.
Grow
with
up,
y'all.
everybody. I
Judge,
want you to be prepared to dig deeper in your pockets by the time your support case reaches the court.
I understand that.
Because under the federal guidelines, you're going to give her 33 1/3% of your salary. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
So I want you to start kissing goodbye $300 every 2 weeks. And in order for you to get used to that, I would suggest you start to do it now, so it doesn't come as a big shock to you.
Well,
Do you understand?
When I was giving her the money, she all of a sudden said, when she filed a child support claim, she said, I don't want it, don't give me anything, because she's trying to make them think that I'm not doing anything when the kids
So
are at
you
my
do
house
it.
and
Listen,
I'm doing everything for them
Sir,
right now.
Mr. Bryant, do you have a lawyer?
Yes, I do.
If you have a lawyer, I'm certain that your lawyer is going to tell the court
Right.
that what you really do is you have a shared custody
Exactly.
situation. If, in fact, you have a shared custody situation where each of you have the children 50% of the time, there may
Right.
be no order of support.
That's what.
Maybe there's no order of support, but I would get myself in the thinking mode
Right.
of a third.
Because he go to school Monday and Tuesday, so.
Goodbye, be well, have a happy life, take your clothes.
Why is her excuse you may step out?
She probably tore them up herself.
Why would I cut up $2,000 worth of clothes?
She's jealous of me and my girlfriend right now.
I don't care what he do. He's in my business now.
and now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Brown versus Knox. Step forward, please.
College professor Daniel Brown is suing his former student, 22-year-old Rebecca Knox, for a class trip to Europe.
Do you have a PhD?
No, no, ma'am.
So you are Mr. Brown.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Brown, you are a professor
Yes,
at the college level,
yes, ma'am.
and the defendant was a student of yours.
Correct.
According to you, you made a loan to her in order to enable her to accompany you last year, along with some other students, on a trip to Europe,
Yes,
and she has not paid you back.
correct.
Ms. Knox acknowledges that you gave her the money for the trip. She said there was never any agreement to pay you back, and it was a gift.
Totally untrue.
Just a minute. Is that your defense?
Correct.
No. You acknowledge that he gave you this money.
Correct.
When did he give it to you?
I believe it was in February of 2002.
I want you to tell me the circumstances surrounding him giving you this money.
As he had said, he takes a group of students each semester across the seas to different locations in Europe.
Okay, how many students does he take?
It depends on how many are actually interested in going.
How many were interested in going on the trip that you went on?
We had 5 girls and 1 boy, so there were 6 of us.
Okay, so tell me what happened in February.
I had actually expressed interest in going. The trip was.
What do you mean you expressed interest? What does that mean?
The trip was to Ireland, England, and Scotland, and I've always wanted to travel. I'm a history major, and England is actually my basis of what my emphasis is going to be. And so I went to his office, and I just asked for a little bit more information about the trip, and I got brochures and the cost and the itinerary. And I took the information home. I looked over it, looked at the money. It was a little bit out of my reach. I didn't have the money saved up quite yet.
How much was the money?
$2,500.
Go ahead. You say you didn't have it saved up yet. Were you saving for it?
I knew he took people on trips, so I had saved up just a little bit of money.
How much did you save?
That was about $300. I didn't know the full cost.
How long was this trip?
It was originally supposed to be for 17 days, and then it got shortened to 11 days.
Okay, well, you didn't think the $300 was going to take you for 11 days.
No, not at all.
Good. So you got the brochures, you looked at it, and you saw that that you didn't have enough money.
Right. So I went to my bank to see if I could actually apply for a loan, and they said that they probably wouldn't be able to give me a loan. And so I went back and talked to Miss Brown about it, and he had...
Well, what do you mean you went back and talked to him about it?
I just talked to him about the trip and said that it was...
You went to his office?
Correct.
So you went to his office, and you said what to him?
And I told him that I'd look into other ways of financing it, as to loans and things like that, and he had mentioned that he might be able to give me the money. And I was, oh, okay, well, that was nice. Thank you. And the next day at class, he handed me a check for $2,500.
And what did you say?
I said, thank you.
Good. Now I'll hear your version of the story, Mr. Brown.
Your Honor, a great deal of what she says is true. The one emphatic word I would leave out would be give. I made it very clear to Ms. Knox it would be a loan. And
tell me what she said to you when she came to your office.
she said she'd like to go. And that she
why?
did not. She said she was investigating perhaps going to a bank, perhaps to get a loan. And I happened to know a colleague who also had Miss Knox in class, and I had been made aware there had been a bit of a tragedy in the home. And
in her
so,
home?
Well, my understanding is her sister had been killed in an accident. So, kind of, tugged the heartstrings. And so I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. Start making payments once you get back. And I'll forward you the money, because I knew she wanted to go to England, and she was very interested, and she'd been a good student. So I said, I'll help invest. In the only regard is I need to get the payments within a certain amount of time when you come back. I have children that are in school, and I pay tuition. And she agreed. And Your Honor, if I could, I have the check, February 9th, and on the memo it says personal loan, L-O-A-N.
Mr. Brown, it's a very easy case. I believe you. I don't believe you. Period. End of discussion. I don't see any reason why this man who took 5 people and you on a tour would say to you, I'm going to give you the money. I don't see it. Do you?
I guess not.
I guess not either. So if it doesn't sound right, if it doesn't have the ring of truth to it, it's usually not the truth. How much did you give her, which was a loan, sir?
$2,500.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. That's all.
Parties are excused.
Assisted living aide Maria Ramirez for stealing her state child care checks. Maria admits she cashed the checks, but says the money went back to Valerie.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Your Honor, case number 525 on the calendar in the matter of Ramirez versus Ramirez. Parties have been sworn in. Have a seat.
Ms. Ramirez, the defendant is your aunt.
Correct.
And you and she worked out an arrangement where you would babysit for her. She was working at night. And you were to be paid with checks that she was receiving from the state because she was entitled to child care assistance. Is that right?
That's right.
You claimed that while she received a substantial amount of money every month, some $1,200 a month for child care, she gave you only a portion of that, and that she took your checks that were made out in your name, forged your name, cashed the checks, and gave you only a small amount. Your aunt says that's not true, that she was with you or you were with her whenever the checks were cashed, and she gave you the full amount. To add insult to injury, you claim that you received a W-2 form for your income tax, and you have to pay income tax on the full amount. Is that right?
Yes.
When did you babysit for your cousins?
August, September, and November.
What happened to October?
Yeah, I have a check. It's for October. I'm sorry.
July, August, September, and October, those months.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see the checks that you have. How did you get your hands on copies of these checks?
I went to the people that give her the assistance for babysitting.
And they gave you copies of the checks that were
Yes.
made out to you and the backs of those checks on how they were endorsed?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during the 4 months that you worked for your aunt, how much did she, in fact, pay you?
I got $500 each month for the first 3 months, and for the last month I got $150.
Did you report this to the police?
They didn't want to make a police report. They told me to go to a small claims court.
What police station did you go to?
Fresno Police Department.
Fresno police told you not to make a report?
They sent me away. They told me to go and fill out some forms to go to small claims court.
Well, you don't mind making a police report now, do you?
No, I don't.
As a matter of fact, if I continue to hear this case, one of the stipulations will be that you will make a police report with regard to forgery. Forgery is a felony. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you have no problem with making a report?
No, I don't.
Is that right?
Correct.
Even though if you make a report and it's a false report, that's also a felony.
I know.
You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We understand each other?
I do.
Serious business. We're talking here serious business. Unless we get down to the truth of this matter right now.
I understand.
You got almost $2,000 for 3 months, checks that were made out to her. That was a lot of money.
All right.
Did you use any of that money?
No.
Are you telling me that you are still maintaining the position that she was with you when you cashed those checks and you gave her all this money?
She was
Be careful. Be careful what you say. Very careful. If we just say, Ms. Ramirez, I made a mistake, then the whole thing goes away. Do you understand?
I understand.
May I make a comment? Assuming that I was present while cashing these checks with her, there would be no reason for a third-party signature on the check if I'm cashing it with an ID.
Absolutely right. Yeah, the same person signed both your name and her name.
Yes.
It's the same handwriting.
Mm-hmm. My name is spelled incorrectly as well, if you turn to the front of the check.
Ask her to point that out to me, please.
My name is spelled V-A-L-E-R-I-E, and here it's spelled V-A-L-A-R-I-E. And on every check it's spelled wrong.
With an A.
Uh-huh.
Valerie, spelled with an E on the signature, it's an A.
Right. I see it. You spelled her name wrong.
Can I talk now? Mm-hmm. Okay, she was in there with me when I cashed her checks. The reason why we went to the same place is because she said that she had misplaced her ID. There was no way nobody was going to cash those checks for her, so I went to the store where they know me and where I cash my checks. So I went in there.
You signed her name. She didn't misspell her own name, madam.
But she was there.
She didn't misspell her own name. You signed her name. If she was with you, why would you have to sign her name?
Because the guy didn't know her and he wouldn't cash them for her. And
So instead, listen to me, listen how stupid that sounds. He doesn't know her. He lets you sign her name. That's okay. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds?
I also signed my name on all of them. If she
I
wasn't
know
there,
that.
I wouldn't have signed my name. And he handed her the cash to her, not to me.
I don't believe you.
Well, here's his number and to his store. He was going to be here today, but he had...
I believe that a lot of things could have happened, including the fact that you gave him a couple of bucks for cashing these checks. But there isn't a question in my mind that she did not sign these checks, and you did. Not a question in my mind, and you admit that.
Because I was the one that was up there signing, so he told me just write her name, so I wrote it in. And on top of it, she was suing me for $5,000. She went into the store asking him for $7,000.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
I did go to his store, and I spoke to him because I wanted to let him know that I knew that these checks were cashed there, and if he would admit to the fact to that, because the lawyer that I was talking to said if he admitted to it, it would be less worse for him, and he could countersue against her for forging them checks in his store. And also, I've done a third-party check before with my mom when my ID was misplaced. They asked me for my signature and my fingerprint and my mom's on the bottom. Never did they have my mom sign my name.
Listen to me. I understand that she forged your name to these checks, And the excuse she gives is ridiculous.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She starts threatening me and my kids, talking about her bulldog friends were going to come by, drive by my house, and start shooting. And then she's
stole money that belonged to her, Mrs. Ramirez.
And later today,
You put the keys in her hand, or did you throw them at her?
I threw them at the floor.
When did you tell her where the car was?
I didn't told her.
That's right.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Valerie Ramirez claims her aunt, Maria Ramirez, stole her state checks. She also says Maria forged her signature and cashed them.
What I think, Miss Ramirez, is you decided that all that money was too much for her for just staying over at your house and sleeping and watching your kids while you were working at night. And so $500 a month was more than enough, and you took the rest of the money and you pocketed it. Unfortunately, you didn't think ahead enough to think that she was going to be W-2'd, so that she was going to have to pay taxes on it.
She knew that she was going to be W-2 because when we signed the contract, they told her. Afterwards, she came back telling me, I'm not going to pay all those taxes on that money, and blah, 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 blah. Afterwards, she starts threatening me and my kids, talking about her bulldog friends were going to come by, drive by my house, and start shooting. And then she's
stole money that belonged to her, Mrs. Ramirez.
I didn't take any money that belonged to her.
Oh, I believe you did. I believe that the story you just told me, that the man in the check cashing place said he wouldn't. The two of you were in there together, and he knows you. And you say to him, this is Valerie. And he says to you, the man in the check cashing place, I don't know who she is, so you sign her name, and then you sign your name.
Well, he just gave me the pen and said, just sign it, so I signed.
Yeah, right. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Miss Ramirez.
Yes, ma'am.
Check's being withheld until you file the police report. Do you understand that?
No problem.
Good, thank you.
She got all her money because the guy would hand her the money, not to me.
Well, I don't believe she has any evidence that I did, and all the evidence is turning straight around to the other direction.
He was using even my kids to have an affair with one of my daughter's friends, picking her up and driving her around. And that's why she got all mad and started everything out.
Our problems are our problems. We're adults. Her kids have nothing to do with it, and my daughter doesn't either.
If she wasn't getting her money, she should have said something the first month, not waited till after she had stopped working and everything was over with.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lee versus Rosales, step forward, please.
23-year-old student Diana Lee is suing her ex-boyfriend, 19-year-old security guard Cipriano Rosales, for damage to her car and for impound fees. Diana claims Cipriano stole the vehicle and vandalized it.
Miss Lee, the defendant used to be your boyfriend, and according to your complaint, you let him borrow your car. This was after he ceased to be your boyfriend. Is that right?
He ceased to be my boyfriend. Yes,
When
that's
he was
correct.
no longer your boyfriend, he called and asked to borrow your car.
Yes.
And you let him borrow your car.
Yes.
And when was that?
When we were friends. After
Give me a
we
month.
broke up.
Give me a month, day, and year.
November 2nd, 2002.
That's when he borrowed your car for the first time.
Yes.
And when was he supposed to return it?
That very same night after he finished working.
So far, is that right, sir?
Yes, except for the part that we were still boyfriend and girlfriend when she let me borrow her car. We weren't friends.
She didn't know that.
All right.
Your Honor, I disagree.
I don't care whether you disagree. It's really not important. What happened with your car on November 2nd, Miss Lee?
Well, I lent it to him as a friend because he...
What happened to your car? You lent it to him on November 2nd.
Yes, and he took it away and he never returned it back. And I got mad and I asked him, why did you drive away with my car?
What do you mean drive away with your car? According to your complaint, Miss Lee, I'm going to try to refresh your recollection so we can move on with this case before I fall asleep. He came and returned your car. When he pulled up in front of your house, according to you, he saw you talking to another man. He got mad and he left. Is that what happened?
Well, you
now he's
missed a lot
shaking his
of
head
things.
yes. Is that what happened, sir?
That's what happened.
No, that's not what happened.
Miss Lee, this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing that he just admitted that. You see, he was going like this, right? That's what happened. You got up, you saw her with somebody else, you got very angry, and you drove off.
No, I did not drive off.
What did you do?
I gave her the key because she asked for it.
Yeah.
I walked to the bus stop and I took the bus home.
Mr. Rosales, you know what happens, sir, when you can't keep a straight story? I'm going to read to you what you wrote and swore to in your answer, unless you want to tell me again what you did with the car.
I did park the car 2 blocks away from where she lives.
Oh, now you're remembering a little bit better what you said, sir. You didn't hand it. You parked the car 2 blocks away because there weren't any parking spaces.
Exactly.
Now, was that before or after you saw her with this other man?
That was after.
Correct. You saw her with another man and you drove off.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did. According to what you just told me, you drove off and parked the car 2 blocks away.
I parked the car 2 blocks away because there was no parking.
Mr. Rosales, follow what I'm saying to you, sir. Stop shaking your head. You don't even realize that that's exactly what you say in your complaint. There's Jay Leno when you need him. You dropped the car off. You pulled up to her house. She was there talking to another man. At that time, you did not leave the keys to the car, but you took the car and parked it 2 blocks away. Is that correct?
No.
Then start again. You borrowed the car on November 2nd. What time did you return it?
11:45.
And what happened when you returned it at 11:45?
Okay, I came from work. I came from work. I parked the car 2 blocks away from where she lives. I walked out of the car. I waited in front of her apartment, and that's when she showed up with another guy. I told her what's going on. She said, "Oh, you're just my friend." So then I took the key and I gave it to her and I walked away. She tried to stop me. She ran after me. I just ignored her and I took the bus home.
And that was the extent of your conversation?
Yes.
You didn't leave anything out, did you?
No.
Did you leave out?
Sorry, it's like he's lying right there, you know.
I would like you not to say anything. Didn't you see my face? Shh. I want to know, Mr. Rosales, that is the extent of the conversation. Did you put the keys in her hand, or did you throw them at her?
I threw them at the floor.
And you walked away to the bus stop?
Yes.
And that was the entire extent of the exchange?
Yes, it was.
So if I believe your story...
May I say something, Your Honor?
I know. When did you tell her where the car was?
I didn't told her.
That's right. How much later, Miss Lee, did you find the car?
After the whole week have passed.
I want you to tell me on what day you found the car.
On November 8th.
Fine. And do you have a picture of the car when you found it?
Yes.
Can I see them, please?
Yes. And here are the damages.
Car was pretty well vandalized, I see.
Yes, Your Honor.
You have estimates of the damage? Did you have the car fixed?
Yes, I do.
Did you have the car fixed?
No, I can't afford it.
What kind of car is it?
It's a Ford Taurus station wagon.
What
red
year?
Color.
What year?
It's 88. It's 88 Ford.
You know what the Blue Book value of the car is?
No.
Let's find out. A 1988 Ford Taurus station wagon. How many miles does it have on it?
I have no idea. May I correct something that he lied?
Sure.
Your Honor. He said that he was still my boyfriend. That is not true. We were just friends because we broke up since September. And he told me to go out with my friends. And he asked me, why don't you go out with your own friends? And I was like, is that what you want me to do? And then he was like, yes, that's what I want you to do. So I obeyed him. Can I add one more thing, Your Honor, please?
Shh. Sure.
When he got mad I arrived with my friend and he got mad at me and he yelled to my friend, what the did you guys go taking my away?
Miss Lee, what is that supposed to add to this case?
Well, that he was really, really mad. He told me to go out with his friend.
I don't care. I don't care. I'm not your therapist.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Okay. $1,300 is what it's worth, okay, if you went to sell it. That's the Blue Book value of the car. So, you see, Miss Lee, you know what your problem is? Listen to me very carefully. That's the value of your car. And now it's impounded, and all the fees and everything else, you want $4,300 from him. Well, your car is only worth $1,300, so you can't get from him $4,300. Do you understand?
I understand.
Good. But, Mr. Rosales, if you had a hissy fit and parked the car someplace else and didn't tell her where you parked the car, which meant that she was searching all over for weeks, and by the time she found it, let us say you didn't have anything to do with vandalizing the car, but other people did, because it was clearly vandalized, right?
I'm not aware. I haven't
Well,
seen the pictures.
let me show you the pictures. I'll make you aware. Show them the pictures, Kurt. Thanks.
Your Honor, I have a witness that saw that he took my car.
What difference does it make? If I find Miss Lee that he is responsible, you're only entitled to $1,300, not $4,300. You're only entitled to the value of the car. You understand?
Right, but I have to take it out of the tow. And this is
You don't
the
have to
tow.
take it out of the tow. Let them sell it. The value of the car is $1,300. You took the car from her, and because you got angry, you parked it someplace else and you left without telling her where it was. Either you or somebody else vandalized her car to the extent that it's totally damaged. You're responsible for that, sir.
I don't agree with that, Your
I
Honor.
don't care whether you agree with it or not. She lent you the car, which was a nice thing for her to do, and you returned the favor by not returning the car to her. That's all. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,300. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Suing her former friend, dog walker Shira Wilson, for an unpaid loan. Shira says the money was a gift.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 542 on the calendar in the matter of Trojan versus Wilson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, please.
Miss Trojan, you claim a loan to the defendant in the amount of, what is it, $500?
Yes, that's correct.
The loan was in order to pay certain court costs and fines involving an arrest that the defendant had had. Was that arrest for domestic violence?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. That was a fast yes. Easy. The defendant acknowledges the fact you paid for the fines and court costs. Is that right? You admit that she gave you the money.
Yes.
But you say it was not a loan. There was a reason that she gave you the money. I'm ready to hear it.
Okay. Well, Christine herself had an outstanding court trial.
What kind of case?
Terrorist, making annoying phone calls, making threatening phone calls.
What kind of case did you have?
It was for making annoying phone calls.
Harassment.
Harassment.
Can I see what you have there,
Yes.
please? Making harassing phone calls to whom, Miss Trojan?
It was an ex-friend of mine also.
Male or female?
Male.
An ex-boyfriend of yours?
No, not a boyfriend.
So she had a pending case.
Yes, that I was her only witness to. And we determined after that...
Now look at me. Don't look down there.
I'm sorry, baby.
Look.
Oops. My apologies.
Try to keep it together, Miss
You got
Wilson.
it. My apologies.
You had a domestic violence case,
Yes.
which you were fined. You hadn't paid them, so you were going to be arrested.
Something like that.
Something like that. It's close enough. She gave you the money. Now you're telling me that the reason she gave you the money is because she had a pending case, and you were subpoenaed as a witness to testify in her case.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And at the same time, at the exact same time that her case was going on, I had a progress report due for my case. Every so many months, I would have to come to court and show progress on my payments to the Neighborhood Family Center where I took my domestic violence classes. And for her case, her attorney, this very same day that I was going in, that I made the $400 payment, was the very same day that her attorney called her and told her about my case and asked her questions about why I don't know, because they were trying to impeach me as a witness for on the prosecution. And when Christine intervened, and she was trying to secure that I was not going to be impeached as a witness for her, which I don't know why she came up with this, but she thought better for me to pay my entire balance on my fines than to have a reason for them to
That's a lie, Your Honor.
It's not a lie. You know it's not a lie. Excuse me.
Okay, so let me try to put
I
this
never came to her to ask her for...
Let me try to put this succinctly. Your defense is she paid this money so that when you were called as a witness in her harassment case, the people, the prosecutor, would not be able to impeach you as a witness by demonstrating that you hadn't paid appropriate court costs and fines on your other case. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I thought that's what you just told me. And therefore she, on her own volition, took it upon herself to pay the court costs and fines, which were how much?
To give herself peace of mind. She gave me $400, and I have receipts.
Just a minute. So she gave you the money?
No, she gave it to Sheila, the director of the Neighborhood Family Center.
So she didn't give you the money, she gave it to Sheila?
She went with me that very night and took me, yes. Yes,
gave it to Sheila?
Yes, ma'am.
That's another lie, Your Honor.
Okay. Now you tell me, Ms. Trojan, your version of why you paid this money for her.
Okay. She approached me and asked me for the money to pay off this fine. And the fine.
When did she do that?
It was in the later part of April, I believe.
Go ahead.
And she asked me if I would loan her the money, because at this time I had just recently...
Where were you when she asked you?
I was at her apartment.
Go ahead.
And regarding the case that she's talking about...
No.
Okay.
You were in her apartment and she said to you...
Well, let's go back a little bit. When I drove her home one day, I was dropping her off at her apartment. There was a LA County Sheriff's vehicle out in front of her apartment, and as we were going down the street, she grabbed my arm and said, "Don't turn, keep going." And so I kept going. She had me parked down the street, and then she asked me to go to her apartment to see if the sheriffs were there for her. And I said, "What's going on? What have you done?" And she said, "Well, I have this outstanding I have this case and I have monies are due," and she goes, "and I'm worried that they're there to pick me up on that because I haven't paid my fines." And so I went to her apartment, and when I walked over to her apartment, the sheriffs were already gone. So I came back, and then she had gotten out of my car and then we went up to her apartment, and then that's when she had asked me if I could loan her the money to pay off these fines.
Tell me about the whole conversation. Did any part of the conversation have to do with your upcoming case?
No, because at that time I was going through my court case, but it hadn't even gone to trial yet, and I was taking it to trial. So I didn't have an idea that she was going to...
What happened at the trial?
Well, I have the paperwork here, Your Honor, if you'd like to see it.
Just tell me, and then I may look at it. What happened?
Well, at the time I was going to court on it, and it hadn't gone to trial yet. So
you told me that already. I asked you what happened when it went to trial.
It went to trial, and then she was a witness for me, and I ended up losing the case.
So you were convicted?
I was convicted.
So she's not a very good witness?
No.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You threw a hairbrush at him?
Yes.
Did he have a razor edge?
No.
Did it injure him?
Yes.
Where did it injure him?
Above his forehead.
And later today...
I moved out because the behavior that I was dealing with living with them in the apartment was...
Well, tell me about the behavior.
Loud fighting, screaming, physical fighting.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christine Trojan says former friend Shira Wilson owes for an unpaid loan for court fines. Shira says she never asked Christine for the money.
I'd like to see the paperwork on her case.
Sure.
Who are you?
I'm her boyfriend. And I know a lot about what went on with
the whole... step up here instead of sitting there and laughing to... Shh, quiet. What do you do for a living?
I'm in sales.
What's your name?
Carrie Wagoner.
What kind of sales are you in, Mr. Wagoner?
Internet.
You have a company of your own?
No.
So you work for somebody else?
Yes, I do.
So tell me what you know about this money that was paid... About the money that was paid by the plaintiff on the defendant's behalf.
No problem. Well, first of all, it wasn't $500 that she's suing for. It was $400. Second of all, if Shira came to her in April for the money, the court fines were paid in March, a month earlier.
Listen to me. There is no contest, Mr. Wagoner. Stop. Put your hand in front of you.
Sorry.
Put your hand in front of you. There is no question, there's not an issue as to the fact that the money was paid by the plaintiff on the defendant's behalf, whether it was in March or April. So that doesn't make any difference. Do you understand?
Sure.
What else do you have to contribute?
Well, the fact is that Christine came to Shira about her case because they had the same judge. She was paranoid that
Were you present, Mr. Wagner?
No, I was not.
Then you may be seated, sir.
Your Honor.
Speak not, I'm reading. What is this motion to exclude defense witness? Is that her?
Yes. Yes, I was her only witness. They were trying to have me impeached for whatever reason.
Excluded.
Whatever.
Not impeached, excluded.
Yeah, that's the word. I'm sorry, my apologies.
Did you ultimately testify?
Yes.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
And that statement in there does not, it's not for her. It's for a totally different witness on the plaintiff's side.
Okay. Tell me about the case that you were convicted of, Miss Wilson.
I threw a hairbrush at my boyfriend that he threw at me, and I was taken to jail for it, and I pled no contest.
You threw at this boyfriend?
Yes.
You threw a hairbrush at him?
Yes.
Did he have a razor edge?
No.
Did it injure him?
Yes.
Where did it injure him?
Above his forehead.
Was this the first time that you'd been taken into custody on a domestic
Absolutely.
violence complaint?
Yes, on any account.
Okay. Are you living together now?
Still are, yes.
Oh, good for you. So that the only one who's out any money as a result of this lover's squabble is her. Is that right?
Correct.
I have a history. I can show you the history of me. My payments to the courts were under control. I had no need to.
Just a second. Just a second. I assume that you were making the payments to the court because you knew you had done something wrong. Is that right?
I was making the payments because I had an outstanding balance for the class.
Because you had done something wrong, you pled no contest, which is equivalent to a plea of guilty.
Right, absolutely.
And you were making your payments.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you did something wrong.
Yes.
So you had to be punished.
Yes.
And you had to be punished by going to classes for which you had to pay, right?
Correct.
And in addition, pay certain court costs because you ate up the court's time with your nonsense,
yes,
and you got charged for that,
yes,
right? Right?
Yes,
now, what kind of statement does it make, Miss Wilson, if somebody else is punished for you? Listen to me. What kind of statement does that make for you? That is almost like saying, she should go to jail for me because she wanted me to do something, so she'll go and do my time. I can pay somebody to do my time. I don't have to go to jail myself as punishment.
No,
if I can get somebody else to do it, that's terrific.
I was very proud of the fact that I have been able to take care of all my.
Great! Then that's what I want you to do. You're going to feel absolutely terrific, Miss Wilson, because you're going to complete the payment of your fine.
No.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $400. That's
Thank
all.
you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The reason the friendship's bad is not because of the case. It's because I lent her $100. She's never paid me back.
Shira Wilson has never taken responsibility for anything in her life.
We went to Havasu after that. We went to,
the loan.
she gave me the money. We went to Havasu. We went to Moronga. We've gone.
She promised me a number of
Palm
times to pay me
Springs.
certain dates and times. She never did.
No, I don't know them any money.
That's why she hasn't been by. That's why the friendship went bad. Not because of them, because of her and me.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Simon versus Calverledge, step forward, please.
25-year-old grant writer Jennifer Simon is suing her ex-roommate, 24-year-old designer Katie Calverledge, for breaking their apartment lease. Katie says she moved out because Jennifer has a temper.
All right, let's get some stipulated facts here so that we can move on with this case quickly. Miss Simon, the defendant was a roommate of yours in a shared house.
That's correct.
And according to you, she left 1 month prior to her agreed tenancy,
Yes.
owing some $900 in rent.
Yes.
The defendant says that while she did agree to remain initially agreed to remain as a roommate and share expenses for the month of January, she was forced to move out because of the behavior that was going on in the house.
Yes.
And you also say, Miss Simon, that when she left some of her personal property there that was there during the month of January in 2003.
That's correct, making the room unrentable.
Okay. Why did you move out?
I moved out because the behavior that I was dealing with, living with them in the apartment, was
tell me about
unreasonable.
Tell me about the behavior.
Loud, fighting, screaming, physical fighting.
Who was fighting?
Jen and her roommate Amit.
Tell me about it.
I would come out of the shower at 8 o'clock in the morning and there would be screaming and fighting in the hallway. It generally consisted of Jen trying to strike Amit, and he would try to hold her back. And
how many times did this happen?
Probably 15, 20 times.
Okay, and when did you speak to her about it?
The first week of November, last week of October, I spoke to both of them at the same time, and I told them the reasons I was unhappy living there, that being one of them, and that if it continued and if I continued to feel uncomfortable living there, I would go back to our original agreement, which was to move out the end of December.
Did they agree to that?
Yes, they acknowledged I was upset and that was my wishes.
No. Did they agree to the fact that they would allow you to modify your rental agreement with them?
Yes.
Is that correct?
No, I don't remember. Amit and I tend to fight sometimes.
Is he your boyfriend?
No, he's not. We've been friends for a long time, but I don't recall the conversation that she's talking about, nor do I ever remember talking about a different move-out time. Our lease ended January 31st, and we were all supposed to live there until January 31st.
Can I ask a question?
Of who?
Of Jen.
No, you asked me.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can ask me.
When I originally moved in, I was told that the lease ended December 31st,
That's true.
not January,
I was taking a shorthand, a
Okay.
bit of a shorthand.
Okay.
Originally, the lease was up the end of December, but then you all agreed to extend it until the end of January.
Yes.
That was by agreement, so I made a shorthand. Now, when after October and November were you subjected to the kind of behavior that forced you to move, and did you in fact tell Miss Simon that you were moving?
Yes.
What reason did you give her?
I told her that I did not appreciate being witness to the fighting.
When did you tell her that?
The first week of November.
No. After that, you stayed November. You stayed
the first week of December. The first week of December, I told her my father was coming to town to move my things out the following week, the second week of December.
Is that correct that she moved her things out in December?
She packed up some of her things. Her father did come in mid-December. However, I was of the understanding that it was because she would be gone in Europe for 2 weeks in January. She told us that she would be coming back after the 2-week vacation for the last 2 weeks in January, and she would live with us the last 2 weeks. Her father took some boxes, but she left her bed, she left her dresser, she left several boxes in her bedroom, in addition to several things in the family room and the kitchen.
Did you leave your bed?
No.
I don't believe that.
There's a futon mattress.
Whatever it is that what you slept on?
Yes.
Okay, just a second. Don't play with me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So you left your bed. Did you leave a dresser?
No, it was not my dresser. The dresser was there when I moved in.
Had you been using it?
I had used it.
Okay. Did you leave any boxes?
Not to my knowledge.
She left 3 boxes in her bedroom, in addition to a chair in the family room, a microwave in the kitchen, and miscellaneous items
Did
throughout.
she ever come back to get the chair and the microwave?
No, she never took the chair or the microwave. She had a cousin come the last week in January. She moved the bed to the curb, and she took some of the boxes with her, and she tried to move every...
Just a second. Did you know this cousin?
No, we had never met her before.
A female?
Yes.
What's your cousin's name that came to...
I didn't have a cousin come.
Who came?
My friend Jennifer came with me.
So your friend came with you and you moved out what?
I moved the mattress out and I gathered up my box, my one box that I had discovered that she had moved into.
Where did you find the box?
It was in that room.
In that room. And what month did you move out the futon and the box?
It was January 16th.
Then you owe her for the month of January. Cookie. You don't leave your stuff, which you did, and expect somebody else to pay your rent. If you, in fact, moved out because of problems that you were having, then you moved out. Your father was there. He was there with a car. He takes all of your stuff and he moves out. And you take your futon and you take your box and you take your microwave and you take your chair and you move out. You don't play with me. So you owe her $735, which is rent and your share of the bills. Take care of your obligations. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Alma Capo says security company manager Nufris Val Vallis sprayed her outside a nightclub. Val claims that Alma spit on him.
Ms. Campos, the defendant is a security guard at a club And it is your claim that he pepper sprayed you, causing you injury after an incident at the club where you were a patron along with your brother and some other people.
That's correct.
The defendant says that your brother and you were both drunk that evening and it was necessary to use the pepper to preserve the peace. On what date did this incident occur, Ms. Campos?
On the night of Friday, May 15th, or the morning, Saturday morning, you could say, it was about 1 a.m.
Who had you been with that evening?
My brother and a couple of his coworkers.
You the brother?
Yes.
Step up, please. Tell me your name.
My name is Moises.
Okay. Why don't you tell me what happened?
We were on our way out of the club. My brother and his friends and myself, of course, were walking out. I stopped to get some food that they sell there at the nightclub. So I grabbed 4 burritos. And on my way out, my brother's now sort of a ways ahead of me, friends sort of behind. We're kind of shuffling our way out since it is a club, there's a lot of people. We're making our way out of the club into the parking lot, which is also an alley. And I'm outside in the parking lot, and I see a ruckus, something going on in the alley. And I notice that my brother is surrounded by a number of gentlemen. So the guys around my brother, the security are kind of, around him. And then I see Val with his arms crossed, sort of closest to me. So I ask him, hey, what's going on? Why are you guys doing this?
Well, you didn't ask quietly, because you would not have asked quietly. You would have been excited.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's make sure we get it all right.
Yes. That's correct, Your Honor. And his arms are crossed. He's looking at me with this snarl. All I remember, the last thing I remember is this smile. It's kind of like oh, 'cause I'm bored. Pulls up. I don't even see. I don't know what it is. Yes.
Is that what he said, or is that the look?
Both. The look, and he said those 3 words, 'cause I'm bored. Next thing I know, I'm on my knees in a dress and heels. Face feels like it's on fire. I have no idea what just hit me until I realize, moments later, I'm just like, oh my God, what has happened?
Okay, so that's when you were sprayed and you fell.
That's when I was sprayed and I fell.
Mr. Campos, tell me what happened when you left the club.
As I walked out, I was pushed out by one of the bouncers because he was clearing everybody out, got me out.
Had you been asked to leave the club
I had been
before?
asked to leave.
Why? Do you know?
Just because it was the end of the club. Everybody was about to leave. I was finishing one of my drinks, and he didn't allow me to finish it, so.
I want you to be very accurate with me, Mr. Campos. So you were asked to leave the club, and you didn't leave right away? Is that what happened?
Right.
Okay. And you must have said to somebody in authority, some security person, when I finish my drink, I'll leave?
Yes.
I'm speculating, but I want you to tell me what happened,
Sure.
sir.
So I'm trying to finish my drink. He said, you got to leave now. I said, okay, let me finish my drink. He said, no, you're leaving now. So he pushes the drink out of my hand. It breaks, pushes me out.
Okay. So that's not just pushing you out because the club is closing. You had a confrontation with a security person inside.
Right.
And they pushed the drink out of your hand. The drink fell, and then they pushed you outside.
Correct.
Where was your sister at that time?
She was getting us food. So she was in that same lobby area.
Okay. And so now the security guard pushed you out, so you're out ahead of your sister.
Correct.
How many guards pushed you out?
1.
Who? You don't know?
His name. No.
And it's not this gentleman?
No.
Were you there that night?
Yes, Judge.
And it wasn't this gentleman? No. Okay. Do you know who that was?
Yes.
Who?
A guard named Dave.
Where is he?
He's not here today.
So Dave pushed you outside. Did you see that?
Yes, I was outside when he was brought out.
Explain to me how he was brought out.
Dave was holding on to this gentleman, and 2 other guards were with him as they escorted him out to the outside and asked me to remove him from the area because he refused to leave and was demanding another drink.
Because they had spilled his drink.
He was demanding another drink, and they took that drink, apparently, I found out later, and removed him and brought him outside.
No, that's not what happened. No, that's not what happened.
Okay.
And since Dave isn't here, you can't even suggest to me that's what happened because you weren't there. What he says was, he said, when I finished my drink, and Dave said to him, you're finished with your drink. And he said, I'm going to finish my drink. And the drink got spilled, and that's what caused the trouble. So now you're outside. Was it just Mr. who was with you, or are there other security guards there as well?
There were others around outside, yes.
So it was just Mr. that was bringing you out?
Correct.
How was he bringing you outside?
He, grabbed me by the neck, pushing me with one hand, pushing me on the neck with another hand.
Okay. What happened when you got outside?
Got outside. I was very upset the way he treated me. We exchanged curse words toward each other. It was like a quick conversation because immediately he walked over to a group of security guards, over next to the where the parking lot is, right next to the club. And he said some words that I couldn't hear. It was kind of whispering or, face to face, and there were a lot of people around. And then that's when the next kind of phase happened.
Well, tell me about the next phase.
Once I was coming around toward the corner of J Street and 16th, I was walking.
So you were leaving the club?
Yes, now we're holding our food, walking away. My sister comes right behind me.
So at some point your sister caught up with you because she was
right
buying
behind
the
me.
food.
Correct.
And she got close enough to you to hand you a burrito.
Correct.
Is that correct?
No.
Not correct?
No.
Okay. And you saw the whole thing?
Yes, I was out in the parking lot.
You were out
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
parking lot?
Yes.
So I want you to tell me how he got the burrito.
As we were walking through the parking lot, he kept wanting to go back into the club and have a conversation with the other security officer. Kept calling him names and how he was going to physically hurt him. Dave.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. And we walked down the parking lot telling him, no, it's time to go, time to go. And we were shaking our pepper because he kept advancing on us that he was going to hurt us. And was like, no, sir, you need to go.
You're not answering my question. My question is, when did his sister, who had purchased the food, give him the burrito?
After I had sprayed her, apparently.
After what?
After I had sprayed her with pepper spray.
After you sprayed her, she handed him a burrito?
She'd had the burrito in her hand, so that's the only time I could see that she would have gave it to him was when.
So the answer is you don't know?
I don't know, ma'am.
Then say I don't know.
I don't know.
Perfect. Do you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Your last name is?
Macom, M-A-C-O-M.
Go ahead.
What happened, Mr. Vallis and I work together, and you got to understand when we're out in
I
front
don't
of-
have to understand anything. I asked you a simple question.
The burrito was given when he first came up. He said he didn't want to leave. I told him, get off the property now. She came up. Val had told her to get him off the property. She handed him the food and stuff. They started walking. As soon as we passed the police officers, then the verbal confrontation started.
Just a second. So they were walking away from the club.
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened when they were walking away from the club? Now they're leaving. Situation has been diffused. Sticks and stones will break my bones. They're leaving. Keep going.
The verbal confrontation started.
What verbal confrontation?
The continuous, I'm going to kick your F you. So we just followed at a distance. We were shaking our cans, saying, please leave.
They were leaving. Listen to me. They were leaving. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you follow before shaking your cans? Because they were calling you names?
No, ma'am. He was calling everybody names.
Because he was calling whoever was in earshot names. They were leaving, walking away with their food in their hands. Why were you following them?
To ensure that it did not escalate, ma'am.
It wasn't
With other
escalating
patrons.
if you weren't there. Do you understand that? It wasn't going to escalate if you weren't there. You following me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sit down. Now, Mr. Villa. So now he's outside and she's outside, and before you pepper spray her, she hands him the food and they're walking away. Unless you're calling him a liar, is that what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened?
We were in the parking lot, and he kept wanting to go back to the club.
No, that's not what he said. Then he's a liar. He's calling people names and he's yelling and he's angry, but he's walking away according to your coworker. So are you calling him a liar?
No, ma'am.
Well, either he's a liar or you're a liar. Which one is it? Because he didn't say he was going back to the club. He said he was walking away.
He was back.
So he was walking away, cursing, but walking away with his sister. So which one is it? Was he walking away or was he walking back to the club?
He was backing away, walking backwards away from the club across the parking lot, ma'am.
So he's backing away and you're following him.
At a distance, ma'am, yes.
You're following him.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
So we're walking away, asking him to vacate as we're asking everybody else to
That's
leave
where
the
he's
club.
going. He's
Yes.
leaving. He's in the parking lot, walking towards a car.
And his sister walks up beside me, asked me what we're doing. I said, we
You mean
need
she
him to
comes
leave.
back?
She comes walking up beside me from behind me.
If they were leaving and walking together with her brother, and you're following them to the parking lot.
She had separated away from her brother
Yes. At
And-
what point did she separate away from her brother?
as we were walking across the parking lot.
She veered off?
Yes.
And who was with her brother?
He was by himself.
Go ahead.
And as she walked back up beside me, she asked what we were doing, and I said, we were asking your brother to leave. Please get him to leave the parking lot.
He was leaving. You think I believe you? I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Okay.
You may have had what you considered an unruly patron, but you don't know what went on inside. He tells me what went on inside, which sounds pretty reasonable. He was told to put down his drink. It was time to leave the club. He said, when I'm finished with my drink, I'll leave. And David said, put down your drink, you're leaving. So that's what he says, which I must believe because I don't have David here. And when you got outside, he was very belligerent. You were belligerent. Oh, yeah, I believe that you were cursing and that you were not behaving like a reasonable person, right? What doesn't make sense to me is why you and your cohorts followed him out to the parking lot, unless he just ticked you off with his bad language. And bad language does not require pepper spray, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, you want to tell me what you allege she did to you to require you to use what I perceive to be force with regard to her? What did she do to you?
She stepped up in front of me. She pushed me back with her hands. She had food in her mouth and spit food out. And when she went to slap me, that's when I reacted and blocked her from slapping me, and I pepper sprayed.
I don't believe you. How long have you been in the security business?
Since 2006.
Well, if you've been in the security business for just a short time, I'm going to give you some advice. What did you do before you went into the security business?
I worked for the state of California.
As what?
As a correctional officer.
Well, then you had a short fuse. Did you retire from that job?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you're dealing with unruly prisoners, which is supposed to diffuse the situation as best you can, but he's not an unruly prisoner. He's a patron in a bar. And you're not supposed to walk around and show your muscle. What you're supposed to do is try to diffuse the situation as best you can. This situation could have been easily diffused by just watching them get into a car and leave, which is where they were going. They were going there, according to you and according to him and according to logic. He was going with a lot of foul language. But that doesn't hurt you, and it doesn't hurt anybody in the bar, right? It may hurt their feelings, but it doesn't hurt them and doesn't require use of the kind of force that you used that day, which was to pepper spray her. I don't believe she went to hit you. Charging for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500 as requested, that's all.
Kristen Schumacher is suing family friend, 25-year-old Evan Graham, for the balance on a boat. Evan says Karen sold him a piece of junk.
Ms. Schumacher, you sold the defendant a boat.
I did.
Defendant was somebody that you knew?
Yes.
And you had an arrangement. He gave you a deposit, and he took possession of the boat. He was supposed to pay you the balance in a week or so. He never paid you the balance. You want the balance on the boat.
Correct.
And Mr. Graham says that he relied on your friendship, that this was a good boat. It ended up being a lemon, and you ripped him off, and he's not paying anymore.
Yes.
How old are you, sir?
23.
You work?
Yes.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a plumbing company.
Very good. So you're in business?
Yes.
You deal with contracts, is that right?
Yes.
When did you buy the boat, sir?
It would have been the end of August.
Give me the date.
August 18th.
And that's when you agreed, is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
What was the price you agreed on, Mr. Graham?
$3,500.
So there was an offer to sell the boat and an acceptance of the price, correct?
Correct.
Was this a verbal contract?
Yes.
And you gave her a deposit?
Of $800.
And you took possession of the boat?
Correct.
And then what happened, Mr. Graham?
I bring it out to the lake to test drive it, and I want it run.
Why didn't you make an arrangement with Miss Schumacher for a test drive of the boat before you bought it?
Because she was a family friend, so if there was any problems, we could work it out.
Who said that?
It's an assumption.
What did you do with the boat?
I bring it to a mechanic, spent $1,200.
Just a second. Did you take it out on the 18th? Or did you take it out later?
It might have been the 19th, I don't remember.
Was it the 18th or the 19th?
He purchased it on the 18th. I tabbed and licensed it for him the morning of the 19th. Then he took it from the property about 10 a.m. in the morning, I believe.
On the 19th?
On the 19th.
When did he call and tell you he was having trouble with the boat?
On the 20th.
Okay. And you took it to your mechanic, you put in $1,200.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And you were satisfied that it was done?
Yes.
So you took it back to the water when?
It would have been roughly about a week after I purchased it by the time he was done the work.
So the 27th?
Yeah, roughly. So I bring it back out, and now with it running correctly, I hit the throttle, and the whole transom with the motors mounted to almost broke right off the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And the gas tank came completely disconnected and spilled gas all over the floor of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the middle of the lake with a boat full of gas, and the transom's completely cracked.
When was the last time, Mr. Graham, that you drove this boat?
Early September.
No, I'm talking about before you purchased it.
I've never drove the boat in my life before I purchased it.
You purchased the boat. You waited until the boat was titled in your name till the next day. Then you came and got it. You had trouble with it. You buy a used boat. That sometimes happens. You took it to your mechanic. Your mechanic had the boat for an entire week. And I'm not prepared to say that whatever he did to the boat had no causal connection to what the trouble was that you ultimately had with the boat. I don't know, quite frankly. All I know is that you and Ms. Schumacher had a contract, and you have to abide by the terms of that contract. Do you understand?
Not completely, no.
Well, I tried to explain it to you in the most simplistic terms I can. Would you like me to use monosyllables?
No, maybe you could explain the part about if you have a contract and she says it runs good and it's structurally sound and it's not. Doesn't that void a contract?
You have a writing that says that she is selling this boat in good running order, no mechanical problems, and you're buying the boat contingent upon that? Do you have that?
No, it was a verbal contract.
Your verbal contract is the simplistic one, Mr. Graham, because if I were to ask her whether she tells me that she guaranteed to you when you purchased that boat that she said it was structurally sound and mechanically sound, what do you think she's going to tell me?
Your Honor, I did tell him the boat was running well.
You told him it was running well. The last time you rode the boat was when?
The summer before, which would have been the end of August, last week in August.
So you hadn't driven in it.
That's right.
For 1 year.
Right. It was parked for the winter because it's a small ski boat and you don't take it out in winter.
The last time you rode the boat, was it running well?
Ran fine.
Did you know the boat had been sitting there for a year?
Yes.
Out of the water?
Yes.
Mr. Graham, you owe her the money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,200. That's all.
Harriet Fleischer is suing her former tenant, Robert McWhorter, for rent and for running up her phone bill with sex calls.
Miss Fleischer, do you live in a private house or an apartment?
Private house.
How long have you lived there?
18 and a half years.
Who do you live with?
Currently I have one tenant.
What kind of work do you do, Miss Fleischer?
I'm a computer consultant.
How long have you been doing that kind of work?
Far too long. 9 and a half, 10 years.
This is your complaint. You rented a room to Mr. McWhorter, who was a friend of yours and going through some difficult times. You said that you would allow him to come and stay in your home, $100 a week, and you claim he left owing you some rent.
That's
correct. Which is really not what you're complaining about, because he acknowledges that he owes a couple of $100s in rent. You claim that he made over $2,000 in 1-900 sex calls on your phone.
That's correct.
Mr. McWhorter said, I didn't do that. When were you living with Miss Fleischer, Mr. McWhorter?
Approximately right before Thanksgiving till the 23rd of December.
So maybe November the 20th?
Yeah, it was a Saturday when I moved in.
To December what?
23rd.
You have a copy of your phone bill?
I do. I have a
I'd like to take a look at it, please.
I had spoke to Mrs. Fleischer when I returned from my trip, and she verbally told me over the phone, I took her word for it, I never physically saw the bills myself, that it was between $900 and $1,000.
Look at me. What difference does it make how it was 900 and 1,000? I read your answer, Mr. McWhorter. Your answer says, I didn't make those calls and I don't know who did. So is now what you're telling me, sir, that you did make these calls, you just didn't know the extent of the bill. Is that what you're telling me?
This is correct.
All right, well, that's a little different from your answer. I know that sometimes I can be a little intimidating. That's a very good thing. So I don't have to go through these bills and humiliate you to see how long you stood on the line with these people, probably many of whom, and making out that they're women. You go find a nice girl, Mr. McWhorter. Get your own phone.
May I interject here, Your Honor?
Oh, if you have to.
Robert told me that he had his own phone when we made arrangements for his moving in.
Miss Fleischer, doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
His story now, after he took a look at this kind face of mine, was, I acknowledge I made the phone calls, that I was stupid, right?
Varies.
I was unthinking, right? Right? I'm dying to pay you and get out of here because I'm humiliated. And don't humiliate me anymore.
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect. It could all be so easy.
There are guys pretending to be women?
Yeah, I saw that in a movie once. You know, there were guys that just raise their voice and they sit there and they make other people feel foolish. It was in some Jack Lemmon movie or something. Remember Jack Lemmon?
Remember Jack Lemmon?
Most people don't remember Jack Lemmon. I remember Jack Lemmon.
May I say something, Your Honor?
What?
I explained to Mrs. Fleischer that I'm an alcoholic and I did have gone through several blackout stages. That's why. No, I'm putting it all on the table.
Listen, I gotcha. I understand.
And this is part of my recovery, is to make amends for whatever damages I have.
So why did you have to come here? Why couldn't you tell her that outside?
I attempted to. I didn't know that I was even actually have been taken to court until.
Well, where did you think you were going? To Never Never Land today?
No.
How much do you owe her for rent?
I believe it would be between $100 and $200.
He left owing $200 in rent.
Okay.
On a week-to-week, there's a 1 week, as I understand it, a 1 week...
There's a 1 week nothing. Don't go crazy.
Okay.
He owes you $2,652.
Okay.
Should have taken care of this before you came to court, sir. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Good.
Your
Thank
Honor?
you very much. That's it.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
23-year-old Patricia Serrano is suing her former friend, Elda Lugo, for a $3,500 loan plus interest. Elda claims Patricia gave her the money from a large settlement.
Ms. Serrano, according to your complaint, the defendant is a friend of yours from high school. She ran into some financial difficulty some time ago and approached you about lending her some money.
Yes, Judge.
You were a good friend. You lent her the money, $3,500. She didn't pay you back. You want
No.
your money back.
Yes.
Ms. Lugo says that you were a good friend to her. You gave her $3,500. You would come into some money. There was never any discussion of payback. As far as she was concerned, it was a gift.
That's true. Differ.
When did you graduate from high school, Miss Lugo?
In June of 2001.
And between June of 2001 and the date of this loan or gift, which was on what date?
Last year, around August or July.
How often did you see each other?
After high school, we didn't see each other because we stopped being friends. And after she had a really bad car accident, her mom came and I started being her friend again. That's when we started.
What year?
I honestly do not recall what year she had a car accident.
What year?
It was in 2002, Your Honor.
Now, tell me about the day you approached Miss Serrano with your money troubles.
I did not approach her. I was just telling her my problems that I had with my family.
Shh, I don't. Listen, if you interrupt again, I'm going to dismiss your case. Do you understand?
Yes, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just told her I was having really hard times with my parents. I was having a lot of financial problems.
What kind of financial problems were you having, Miss Lugo?
My mom stopped making the payments, so they took my car from me.
How old are you?
23.
Why was your mother making your car payments for you?
Because we're both on the loan, and I was giving her the money, and she was making the payments out of her account.
Who were you working for at the time?
Bay Cities National Bank.
So why weren't you paying the money directly?
Because that was just an arrangement that I had with my mom.
Your money?
I'm not saying she stole the money. I'm just saying that she wasn't making the payments, and they took the car from me.
So you're saying that if you gave your mother the money and your mother wasn't making the car payments,
She was using it for something else.
That she stole your money?
I guess.
And you told Ms. Serrano that your mother stole your money and they repossessed your car?
I told Patricia the problems that I was having with my parents and why they took my car from me.
Miss Lugo, I don't hear that that's a problem that you're having with your parents. If I believe what you're telling me, which I don't, you're telling me that your mother stole the money that you were giving her for your car loan and using it for her own purposes, and therefore they repossessed your car and you wanted to get it back.
Right.
Now, is that what you want me to believe?
That's the truth. That's exactly how everything's
When did you
always
move
been.
out of your mother's house?
Early September.
So you stayed in your mother's house another year after she stole your money?
Actually,
see where I'm going? So you had more financial difficulties than just this alleged theft by your mother of your money.
I couldn't just leave my house and just leave everything, like all my parents and my sisters behind.
Well, if I were living with somebody that stole my money and as a result of that my car was repossessed, I certainly wouldn't live there.
In June, I actually drove to Vegas and I was going to move over there with my cousin.
That's June 2006. We're still talking about 10 months that you were living with your mother, the thief, if I believe you, which
Right,
I
I
don't.
really didn't have a choice. I mean, I'm
Okay, you're 23 years old, you always have a choice. Okay, now I'm going to get to you, Miss Serrano. Now that I'm getting the personalities in order.
Yes.
Tell me what happened when she approached you in August of 2005 about this money.
Well, she told me the story that her car had gotten repossessed.
Did she tell you how it got repossessed?
Well, she didn't give me a straight answer. I never really did get straight answers from her.
That's a lie.
Don't interrupt. Go ahead.
You know, she came to me, she said, Patty, I haven't been able to make the payments. My mom and my dad aren't helping me out. I just don't have anywhere else to go to for money.
That's not true.
And I said, well, if you need help, feel free to come to me. She said, well, thank you so much.
And a couple of days later, she came to me. She said, Patty, I need to take you up on your offer. Can you lend me $3,500? And I said, sure thing, I'll write you a check. And I'm not too sure if it was a day or two later that she said, it's too much trouble to go about, with the check. I can't cash it. She even told me that her mom had found the check and was questioning her about the check. That's not true. Why, why I was giving her a check for $3,500. And she said, well, I'll give you back the check, and can you please give me $3,500 in cash? I said, wow, I'm like, okay, let me see what I can work out. And I went to the bank, withdrew $3,500 cash.
Let me see from your bank.
Yeah, it's right here. It's highlighted in yellow.
Where did you get all this money from?
I was involved in a very serious car accident in 2002, and I got a small settlement out of it.
A large settlement.
Oh, that's interesting, Miss Lugo. Did you say a large settlement? How large?
I don't know.
When you said it was a large settlement, you must know something about the settlement.
That's all she would always say. She got a large settlement. Never wanted to ask
I never
how much.
told you anything.
Shh. When did she tell you about this large settlement?
After she was recovering from her injuries.
When did you get the settlement?
Sometime in 2004.
You still have any of the money left?
Yes, I do. Some in investments.
Good. So you gave her $3,500 in cash.
Yes.
And what was the arrangement about paying you back?
She said, okay, Patty, you know I wouldn't have done this if I really didn't need it. Believe me, I'm going to have this money to you tops the end of the year when I get my bonus from the bank.
That's not true.
So I said, okay, you know what?
What part of keep quiet don't you understand?
I didn't see the money. She said, well, I just need a couple of more months, whatever. And I said, okay, just don't forget about it. I'm being your friend here.
When for the first time, Miss Lugo, did the plaintiff ask for this money back?
Early September.
That's a lie.
So what part don't you understand?
Sorry, Your Honor.
Tell me about the conversation when she asked you for the money back.
She started calling me at work, and she started emailing me at work.
What would she say when she called?
She was just calling me, telling me that she needed to meet me somewhere.
When did she, for the first time, ask you for the money back? Answer my question.
I believe her first email was September 7th.
That's not true.
Shh. Next time you're gone. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I assume you want me to consider giving you your money back.
Yes, please.
Then don't do it again. September 6th, and what did she say in the email? Do you have a copy of that email?
No, I don't.
Do you have a copy of the email?
Yes.
I want to see the email from September 6th.
She emailed me a promissory note that she wanted me to sign, saying that I owed her the money, because...
Shh. Well, he emailed her, and you said to her that you planned on giving her the money.
Yeah, she was calling me at work nonstop, and she was just harassing me.
No, this has nothing to do with a response to harassment.
That's only the email that she gave you, but she didn't tell you about the phone calls that she was making to work.
I just want to see the emails. This is Wednesday, September 6th, and it's a lovely email. Absolutely lovely. You're happy for her. You're happy that she's happy. Hey, I'm not sure what's gone wrong between us again, but I really appreciate everything you have done for me and the times you've been there for me. I guess we are once again going our own separate roads. If it's the money thing, it's stopping you, don't worry. I will give it to you. Do me a favor. Please do not email me at the bank. I get in trouble for receiving personal emails.
My manager talked to me, and she was telling me that I was receiving too many personal emails. She emailed me.
Listen to me. She wants her money back.
Yeah, after she was trying to get with my boyfriend, she was trying to hook up with my boyfriend, and I confronted her about it. Until then is when she came back and wanted me to sign a promissory note and said that the gift that she gave me for $3,500 was then the loan.
I don't see why somebody who doesn't look like they're rolling in dough would give you $3,500 and not expect to be repaid at some point. Not necessarily in a week, not necessarily in a month or 6 months or even a year. But someday, within a reasonable period of time, when you got your act together, if you ever get your act together, she expected her money back. And to stand there at this point and say, well, she tried to get over on my boyfriend, and that wasn't right, and therefore I'm not paying her a dime, that's the wrong thing to do. It's not the moral thing to do. You want to end a relationship with her? Terrific. Do it. You're not friends anymore? You don't want to be friends anymore? Fine. But she was there for you when you needed her. And you're supposed to do the moral right thing and pay her her money. Just for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,500. That's all.
Verna Ridenour claims her estranged son-in-law, Brian Hill, owes for a loan and babysitting fees. Brian says Verna and her daughter are deadbeats.
Ms. Ridenour, Mr. Hill is your soon-to-be ex-son-in-law, and it is your claim that he owes you for a small loan that you made to him to pay his mortgage and for some babysitting services for your 3 grandchildren.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hill says that the mortgage payment was your idea. There was never any discussion of repayment for it, and he's going to tell me the story about the babysitting services. I want to start with you, Mr. Hill. How long have you been married?
Since 95.
And how old are your children?
10, 7, and 12.
How long have you been separated from your wife?
Since 05.
And how long have the children been living with you? You have custody?
Since 05.
Since 05?
Yes, ma'am.
Did your wife leave the house?
Yes.
Did she have somebody else?
At the time, no, I don't know. I don't think so.
But she left?
Yes.
And she left you with the children?
Well, when she originally left, she took the kids with her. The kids wasn't happy living with Miss Ridenour here. The kids told Tina this many times. Tina told me over the phone that I could have custody. We went to court for the custody.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Just a second. Was custody adjudicated in court?
Yes. When we went
That's
to
all
court.
I have to hear. Custody was adjudicated in court?
Yes.
Did you and your wife make an agreement with regard to the custody of the children?
Yes.
So it was resolved between the two of you that you would have custody and she would have visitation?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you get child support for the children?
It's court ordered, but I haven't received the first check yet.
And how long has it been since you got child support from their mother?
I believe it was April or May of last year, 06.
Now, Ms. Ridenour, when do you claim you made this loan to Mr. Hill with regard to the mortgage payment?
7th of 2006.
Tell me about it.
Mr. Hill was at my house stating that him and the children wanted to move back to his home because he was living with his mom, but he didn't have the money for the mortgage payment. I stated to Mr. Hill that I would lend it to him. He come back and said that he did not want any handouts and that he would pay me back. And I stated that he can make payments and I haven't received a penny from Mr. Hill.
Your Honor, that's wrong.
Okay. Now tell me about the babysitting.
The babysitting, Mr. Hill asked me if I would watch the 3 children for him while he worked, that he would pay me. And I said, okay, $75 a week, and he okayed that. And I said, but he had to be home by 7 that evening. Well, Mr. Hill called me that Friday, because it was only a week that I watched him. That Friday, he called me, and he stated that he would be a few minutes late, that his sister was in a car accident. And I said, okay. This was at 5 p.m. I called him at 10:07 in the evening to ask him if he would be back by 8 to pick up the children. And he said, yes, Vern, I'm leaving now, and hung up on me. And so in the meantime, I was on the computer with the 2 granddaughters, and I received an IM through the computer, which was Mr. Hill's mom, saying all these harsh things to me. And then Mr. Hill came and blew the horn at 8 o'clock and picked up the children. And then when I got on my computer, I seen that I had 2 emails that Saturday, the day after, where Mr. Hill was apologizing for his mom. And I also have an email here stating that his mom wanted me to accept her apology as well.
So what does that have to do with anything?
Because Mr. Hill
What does that have to do with anything?
Mr. Hill should have called me and told me that he was going to be late and not call his mom and have his mom to IM me through the computer. It was between me and him, not me, him and his mom.
He told me that he called you at 5 o'clock. He said his sister was in an automobile accident and he was going to be late. Didn't you just tell me that?
He said a little late.
So what? You're watching. You're with your 3 grandchildren. Do you work?
No, ma'am.
So what else do you have to do? If he said he had a family emergency, what's the big deal?
Because I watched him before, and he's never picked them up until 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about one particular day. You watch the children for 1 week, according to you. Where do you think you are? You watched the children for 1 week. You said he was supposed to pick them up at 7. I assume the other days he picked them up at 7. Called you the last day, said, my sister was in an automobile accident. I'm going to be a little late. And he comes to pick the children up 1 hour late. And I'm asking you, you're the grandmother. What's the big deal?
The big deal is I watched him 4 months prior to that, and I never charged anything. And
you shouldn't charge anything.
And he was coming and picking the children up at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night when it's a school night.
Then you shouldn't have volunteered to watch them again if it wasn't satisfactory arrangement. If it wasn't a satisfactory arrangement 4 months before, then you shouldn't have volunteered to watch them again. It would seem to me that if you are the mother of a deadbeat parent, which you are, because your daughter is a deadbeat, she has not sent support for her children since April of 06, that if your contribution could be helping to watch your grandchildren so that he can work and support them, you shouldn't be here today asking for $75 for babysitting services.
Well, how can my daughter be a deadbeat? She's paying child support for the grandchildren.
No,
she's also
not.
given medical insurance for them.
He hasn't received child support from her since April of 06.
Because he keeps dropping it. It's like this. If she doesn't do what Mr. Hill wants her to do, then he'll go file it. If she does what he wants her to do, he'll drop it.
Listen to me, madam. A parent has an obligation to support children that they made. It is irrelevant to me whether it's a mother or a father. If the father has custody of the children and the mother has no children, then what she's got to do is work because the children need to be supported.
I understand that, Your Honor.
Right.
And
so if I was the mother of a parent who did not pay child support and my contribution could be helping to babysit with my children, I wouldn't complain because the father was an hour late because of an emergency. Now, you want to tell me the story about the mortgage?
July of last year, I moved in with my mother because I was having problems paying bills. I moved down in there, had the kids enrolled in school. Everything was going well. Tina called me maybe 4 months after I moved down there, wanting to know if she could take over our house that we had purchased together. That's fine. If she was going to do it, that was fine. I gave Tina $1,000 cash, and the $1,000 was meant to be for the mortgage payment, the electric payment, and the ground rent where we live. She paid the ground rent and the electric. She never paid the mortgage, took off with the money. And then she calls me a week later and tells me she can't afford the house. Now the mortgage payment's never been paid.
That's not true.
Don't speak.
The mortgage payment was never made. Verna started calling me, asking me to move back. I have phone records of this, how many times she's called.
I'd like to see them.
They're all highlighted in yellow. Verna
She
started
called
calling
you at your mother's house?
on my cell phone,
Or
yes.
your cell phone. Go ahead.
She called me wanting me to come back to move up there so she could be closer to the kids, because at this time I was like 150 miles away from her and her daughter. I told her, being I gave my wife Tina all this money, I didn't have money to move back. She agreed to pay the payment for me if I moved back so she could be closer to the kids and part a Christmas present, because it was November when we moved back.
Your Honor, that's not true.
You didn't want to see your grandchildren?
Your Honor, I do want to see my grandchildren. I haven't seen my grandchildren in 3 months for whatever reason. I don't know. I've seen...
You told me that you were watching them in May.
Well, it's been 2 months.
Oh,
1 or 2 months. I do know.
You told me you babysat for them in May.
1 week she did.
June 6th.
I only watched them for 1 week.
Well, that's not 2 months. 2 months haven't passed, madam.
Well...
I'm asking you, didn't you want to see your grandchildren?
Of course, I do want to see my grandchildren.
No, didn't you, when he was living 150 miles away?
Yes, I do want to.
So that if Mr. Hill says that when you spoke, you said that you would take care of the mortgage payment, are you telling me that you didn't have a discussion with him?
We did have a discussion about the mortgage payment. He told me he did not want any handouts, that he would pay it back. And I said, well, just make it in payments. And he said whatever was left, he would just pay it when he got his taxes back.
That's wrong, Your Honor.
It's wrong. I don't think I believe you, Miss Ridenour. I don't think I believe you at all. And what I find ludicrous is that you seem to have a reasonable relationship with your daughter because your daughter is here with you. And I assume that because she's here with you, you have a reasonable relationship with her. But you have 3 grandchildren. And why in the world would you want to antagonize over what amounts to no money? Certainly you're not out of pocket money with regard to the $75 for babysitting services. Worst thing that you did was you took care of your grandchildren for a couple of days. Big deal. So the worst thing that you're out is a few $100s for a mortgage payment that allowed the grandchildren to be closer to you and your daughter. You would antagonize the custodial parent of your 3 grandchildren. Antagonize him.
Your Honor, they even called Child Protective Services on me.
No, I most certainly did not.
One of them, too.
We did not.
Since I've moved back in November.
No, I most certainly did not.
Since I moved back in November, them 2 are the only ones that have been in my house. When I was moving back, I was carrying a dresser down my hallway. I tripped and my back hit the wall, which put a hole in the wall like about that big. Whoever called Child Protective Services told them that I was abusive, that I didn't have food in the house, that the kids were going to school dirty, there were the hole in the wall, stuff, you know, just made up a bunch of stuff about me. Well, Child Protective Services have a lady in my kids' school all day, every day.
That is not true, Your Honor.
This lady sees my kids all day, every day. The lady pulled the kids out of class, asking them a bunch of questions, if I ever hit them, if we have food. And the call went through to Child Protective Services on April 16th. April 12th is when we went to court for child support.
Gotcha.
That was the following Monday.
Gotcha.
Thursday, when we went to court on the 12th, that next day was Friday. That's the day she agreed she didn't want to watch kids no more.
Gotcha. Your case is dismissed, Mr. Rittenauer, and I would suggest you try very hard to make up with Mr. Hill so that you can see your grandchildren. That's all. Goodbye.
David Yanas claims fellow clubgoer Travis Pexey vandalized his car with a crowbar. Travis claims David threatened to shoot him.
Mr. Yanis, it is your claim that the defendant, after a night of drinking, are you smiling for a reason?
Oh, no.
Damaged your car, attacked your car. You want him to pay for the damage. Mr. Pexey says that you actually attacked him and ran him over with your car. He was just protecting himself. So why don't you tell me your version of the events? First, when did it happen?
It happened in Saddle Ranch on Saturday, the 13th of February. And what happened was when we were walking after the club was closed at 2 o'clock, we were walking to the parking lot.
Who's we?
Me and my friend Scott.
So tell me what happened as you were leaving the club.
Okay, so when I was walking towards the car, Travis bumped into me. And when I said, like, you know...
Did you know him before?
No, I didn't know him. That was the first time I ever seen him. He bumped into me, and he just started, like, cussing at me, like, saying, you know, what the F, and this, what's your problem? And I was like, what? And, you know, I'm way bigger than Travis. I was like, man, get out of my face. So then he walked up to me even more aggressive towards me. So when he walked up towards me, I didn't want to hit him. So I grabbed him in a headlock, and I was holding him in a headlock, and then one of his friends were coming up to me. And I was like, you know, it was me by myself at the time because I didn't see my friends there. I was like, man, tell your friend to get back. So when I was holding him...
Are you thirsty already?
Sorry. When I was holding, I told his friend, get back. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to start anything with you guys, get back. So that's when Scott showed up, my witness right here. He showed up, and he's like, come on, man, let's get out of here. So I pushed Travis towards his friend, and that's when the other guy, Andy, came, and he's like, come on, let's go, it's not worth it. So I was like, all right, let's get out of here. So I sat in the back seat, Scott sat on the side next to me, and then Andy was driving. Andy was the driver. And we were parked, like, you know, with the front end facing out of the parking. So when we tried to get out this way, his friend stood in front of the car. So what Andy did is he came back and then he went that way to try to avoid him, to get away from him. But in the parking lot, you can only go down one way. You know how the on-ramp is at City Walk? So
Do I know? No, but I can sort of imagine you were explaining it very well.
Okay, so we ended up going in a big circle to come out in the same downward on-ramp where he was still at because his car was like kind of by there. So he comes out and I guess that's when Scott saw him when he came out and he threw a crowbar at the car.
Just a second. Did you see him throw the crowbar?
No, I didn't see him.
Your last name, sir?
Lauby.
Mr. Lauby, you were sitting in the front passenger seat?
No, the back driver's seat.
Okay. Who was sitting in the front passenger seat?
David. I was sitting in the back, Your Honor.
Alone?
Yes. Andy was driving and David was shotgun in his car. Because I just jumped in the back and he got in the front.
I don't remember that really.
Okay. Tell me what you saw.
So when we were coming down the off-ramp, I looked, and out the corner of my eye, I see something being thrown. So I looked, and then I just ducked because the window was right there, and the crowbar hit the back quarter panel of the car. And then that's when we just took off, and then we ended up getting pulled over.
Perfect. Sit down.
Thank you.
What's next?
Okay, so now when we're leaving City Walk and we get down by the metro station, which is across the street from City Walk, we get pulled over by a sheriff. He pulls us over. He takes us out of the car one by one. He starts asking us questions like, do we have weapons or anything like that? And I was like, no, you can search me and my car's clean. You know, he searches everything. What he does, he puts us in 3 separate cop cars. Then he takes me out of the cop car and makes me stand next to my car. And that's when a security vehicle came, I guess, with Travis to identify me, to point me out. So the sheriffs go and they asked us to go back to the substation to write a statement.
And you went back in police cars to write a statement.
And they left my car there. So when we're in the police station, I'm writing my statement. He says, okay, I'm going to believe you. And he lets me go. And Scott was still being asked questions. So I got to leave before him. And I was so worried about my car that I went before anybody else to go get my car. When I'm going down the hill and someone is standing on top of my car, it's Travis. And I recognized him because I knew exactly what he looked like already, and I knew what he was wearing, and I knew what his car looked like. So when I start running towards my car, I see a better view, and he's standing on top of my car with a crowbar hitting the window, bashing the window in. And I go, hey, what are you doing? I start running toward the car. He jumps in the car, and while he's taking off, he says, that's what you get, you know, mother F. And he takes off.
I knew what you meant even before you said it.
So, all right. So, and that's how I knew it was him. So what I did is I jumped right back in the car and I went straight back to the police station and I filed the police report.
Do you have pictures of your car, sir?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see.
These are all the pictures right here. That was taken by the insurance.
Did you have the car fixed?
No, all I could afford was to fix the windows, so I just fixed some of the windows.
All right, Mr. Pexi, let me hear your version of the events, sir. What time had you arrived at the club?
Approximately 1:15, 1:30.
And where had you been prior to 1:15?
Where I live in Santa Clarita.
I don't hear you.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Where I live in Santa Clarita.
You were at your house?
Well, I was picking up these
Listen
two...
to me. I have a question, and I don't want you to start thinking and machinating about the answer.
Okay.
You arrive at a club at 1:15 in the morning. My question is a simple one. Where had you been prior to 1:15 in the morning?
Picking up my significant other at the time.
Where had you been prior to picking up your significant other?
Getting ready to go out Saturday night.
At midnight?
At my house.
At midnight?
Yeah, it took the girls actually a really long time to decide where we were going to go.
Mr. Pexi.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't believe, sir, that you got to a club that was going to be closing, or you were going to leave in a half hour at 1:15, 1:30 in the morning when you were out in the parking lot at 2 o'clock. Do you understand what I'm saying, sir?
What?
The girls didn't take that long to get their hair done. Now, had you been at your house? Had you been at another club? Had you
No.
been out for dinner?
That's actually what I went there for, was to eat dinner.
And you ate dinner in a half hour?
Yeah, we were...
I'm asking you a question.
Yes.
You went to the club and you ate dinner
Yes, ma'am.
in a half hour.
Yes, ma'am. What? I didn't finish.
What? You didn't what? No, I mean, you get to the club, you got to look at a menu.
The club closes...
You got to look at a menu, then you have to order, then somebody has to cook it. And all that took place in a half hour, and you were outside in the parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning. I just want to understand what you're saying to me, sir. So, what did you have for dinner, Mr. Pexi?
Bacon cheeseburger, fries with a side of ranch, and a Grey Goose cranberry with the lime.
And
that
you
I
had
actually
that,
spilled
and
all
you
over
got
my
there
dinner.
at 1:15 in the morning. How many people were you with?
Me, my girlfriend at the time, and my friend Justin and his girlfriend at the time.
So 4 of you.
But I was the only one that was eating.
You mean your other 3 friends were just watching you eat?
No, they went there to drink.
Not you.
I actually don't drink alcohol that much.
Well, that much. I'm glad you mentioned that much, sir, because according to you, you had ordered a Grey Goose and cranberry juice. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I do have relatively good hearing. Not perfect, but relatively good
Yes,
hearing.
ma'am.
Go ahead, Mr. Pex. You see where we're going, sir? It's not going to be easy. You're going to be glad you took that drink of water. Go ahead.
Well, so we got into Saddle Ranch, and I don't even know if this is relevant, but I don't like eating fast food, so I wanted to eat at a restaurant, a sit-down place, and there's not...
Maybe relevant to your mother, Mr. Pexi. It is irrelevant to me.
So that was one of the only places that was open that late to eat. So we went there to eat and grab a few drinks before heading home. Pretty much I ordered my food at the bar, at the back bar. That's why it didn't take that long, because it was at the bar. It wasn't like I sat down. Oh, sorry. I don't speak fast. I'm not a very...
Get used to it, sir. I have other things to do today.
Sorry.
This is not exactly the Scopes trial.
So I spilled my drink actually all over my dinner on the way to the table, so I actually didn't really get to eat most of it because it was soaked in my drink. And as I was finishing, they escorted us out of
what?
my meal. Well,
I thought you couldn't eat your meal because your drink spilled on it.
Well, I mean, I had drove all the way down there for food, so I just salvaged what I could, I guess.
I'm trying to salvage the rest of your case, sir. Could we move on, please?
So they kicked us out at 2, and we were walking to the car. It was raining a little bit, so I gave my sweater that I was wearing to one of the girls because they just had dresses on.
You mean they got all dressed up to go to a place for 45 minutes to watch you eat?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
They're very high maintenance.
Go ahead. No, you're high maintenance.
And
They're
so,
not high maintenance. If 3 people are watching one person eat, and they have spent an evening getting ready, because according to you, it takes them a long time to get ready.
Yes, ma'am.
And the entire evening was spent watching you eat a soaked hamburger. They're not high maintenance, sir. You are.
Well, I know I am.
Now let's move on, Mr. Pexi.
So we walked back to the car, which was parked on the opposite side of Saddle Ranch. And my car was backed into the spot that we were parked in. It was in a parking garage. And everyone was getting into the car, and I was the driver because I was sober, because I don't drink.
He drank cranberry.
But I guess you could say I did consume alcohol. So I was getting into my car, the door was open, and I was facing inward to put on the sweater because it was cold and raining. And
So you took it off the girlfriend?
yes, ma'am, after everyone had gotten into the car.
Move on!
And then as I was putting my sweater on, a person approached me, and, well, actually, like a black BMW pulled up, because I was faced out, pulled up approximately like 2 spots up the garage for me. And I was standing getting my sweater on, and somebody came and tapped me and was like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I looked over my shoulder, and it was a person I had never seen before, and it was Mr. Giannis. And I replied to him like, excuse me, I do not know you. You know, what do you need to talk to me about? And he more aggressively then said, I need to talk to you right now. He might have cursed, but I don't really feel the need to use that language. And then as he did that, he kind of twirled me so that my back was to him and grabbed me with his left arm around my throat. And my friend in the car thought that he knew me and that he was just kind of like messing with me like, hey, yo, what's up, how you doing? But it actually turned out that he was trying to choke me out unconscious. And once he figured out that, oh, this guy's not messing with him, he's actually choking him, then my friend got out of the car. And at that time, I was trying to like get breath back into my lungs. Mr. Giannis yells at my friend, yo, this is a jack. I'm gonna kill this fool if you come near me. And he reaches into his waistline. And I was just kind of like, oh my God, is he really gonna shoot me? So I kind of reached back to where his hand was because he was still choking me. And I reached back and there wasn't anything there. And so I looked directly at my friend and I said, hey, he doesn't have a gun. And then he pulled his hand out of his waistline and put it to my head like this. And I was just thinking to myself like, what? And then I went to spin out because he was still choking me. And as I went to spin out, he like grabbed my sweater, and then the sweater got ripped off, and this is the sweater I was wearing. It's like all ripped. And as it ripped off, he grabbed me by 2 hands by my hair, which obviously isn't that hard to grab, and started to proceed to drag me towards the black BMW. And my friend that got out of the car grabbed my sweater.
Fine. All right, let's move on, please. I got it. I got your picture. What I don't understand, Mr. Pexi, is the following, sir. After this interchange happened between the two of you, irrespective of who I believe, there came a time when you were free and Mr. Giannis was in his car.
Yeah,
was in his car. And according to you, this brute, who may or may not have had a gun, who assaulted you without provocation, was leaving. Now I want you to tell me, because I read your answer with some interest, what you did next.
After I yanked my head out of his hands.
Oh, your head's out of his hands, he's in his car, and he's moving away.
And like he said, it was in a parking structure, so he had to go down, make a left, and then another left, and come back by my car. And I ran and grabbed a crowbar from my car, and I was going to get his license plate number.
Okay, now that's what I want. That's what I want. So you ran to your car and got a crowbar.
Yes, ma'am.
In what hand were you holding it?
The right one.
And what were you doing with your left hand?
Running.
And you were doing this in order to get his license plate number?
Because he was... Shh.
Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you say in your answer. Now, in what hand were you holding the pencil?
My cell phone, actually.
What hand were you holding the pencil in?
I didn't have a pencil.
And in what hand were you holding a piece of paper in?
I have a, type.
See what you're doing with this? See? So what I want to know is, Mr. Pexi, how were you going to get his license plate number with a crowbar?
Well, that
running,
was actually just
running
to protect
with a crowbar.
Myself. I actually ran just over to the alley and stopped running. And then as he proceeded to come towards me, and the car swerved at me and ran over my...
How were you going to get his license plate number, sir, which was your intention?
After he ran my foot over, I wrote his license plate down in my phone.
You have the phone with you?
Yeah. I don't
show
have
me
the
his
number
license
in.
plate number in
But
your phone.
I don't have it in here, but I could show you, things to write.
No. I want you to show me his license plate number that you wrote down in your phone.
I don't have it, actually.
Now, moving on from your taking the crowbar and smashing his car.
Yes, ma'am.
You did not, in fact, go to the hospital that day for your foot, did you?
No, the EMTs came.
My question is,
Oh,
you
no,
did
I
not
didn't.
go to the hospital about your run-over foot.
Like in an ambulance?
Like in an anything.
Oh, no.
Like in a car,
Yeah.
anything. You didn't go to the hospital.
No, ma'am.
And he's driving a BMW.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy car to run over your foot.
Yeah, I've got strong bones.
Okay. Now, after he rode over your foot, I want you to tell me what you did to his car.
Well, I just hit it that one time as he ran over my foot. And then I went to fill out police reports and stuff.
Yeah, and so it's your statement that you never went back to his car with the crowbar that you retrieved.
Oh, I didn't. No.
No. And you don't know who did?
No.
Can I see your bill for fixing up your car?
You think I could do that to a car?
It's on there also.
Oh,
There's a
fine,
little
thank
tab
you.
on there.
Not only do I think you could, I know you did.
I weigh like 135
Because,
pounds.
sir, that's why you used a crowbar. If you were a little taller and a little heavier, you could have used your body, could have kicked it. But instead, you got a crowbar to take down his license plate number. All right. What year BMW is this?
It's a 94.
It's a 1994. It's 13 years old. It's not worth $4,700.
That's the damages from what the insurance gave me because the car was considered a total loss, so they wouldn't pay anything for the car. I have to actually fix it myself.
Okay, so you fixed the car.
Yeah, basically.
You fixed the car.
To be
How much
able
did
to
it cost
drive.
you to fix the car, sir?
All I fixed was the windows so far.
And how much did it cost you to fix the windows?
It was about $1,100. I don't have a receipt on me for that one.
Okay. Mr. Yanis, I'm giving you $2,500 to cover the expenses that you incurred in putting in new windows and seeing the best you can do with regard to taking out the dents in the car, which I did see. Mr. Pexi,
Yes, ma'am.
you tell a very, very good story. Not a persuasive story,
Well, I have a police report.
but a very good story. You have a police report made by whom?
West Hollywood Sheriff's Department.
Based on what?
This person that's actually suing me was convicted of a battery, non-desirous of persons, private persons, arrest myself.
They didn't tell me anything about that.
If you'd like to see it, you could check it out.
You mean he was convicted of battery
Yes,
on
ma'am.
you?
Yeah. Oh.
Sir, it may be. You're not suing him for battery.
Oh, I know, but why would I?
You're not suing him for battery.
Why would I
He's
go
suing
after
you
him?
for vandalizing his car.
But why would I go after him if I could have had him arrested for battery? I was kidnapped almost, and
oh.
You're going to pay to fix his vandalized car, sir, which there is no question in my mind that you did. There is also no question in my mind that you precipitated this argument in the parking lot that day, not him. Because if you think that I believe this cockamamie story that you told me about getting to the club at 1:15 to have a hamburger while your three friends watched you after dressing for 2.5 hours to go out for an evening, I don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All these are excused. You may step out.
25-year-old Kay Seichow is suing her former friend, 21-year-old Jessica Silva, for loans for a tattoo and to pay her cell phone bill.
Miss Seichow, you and Miss Silva were friends, according to what I've read in this complaint and answer. And you claim that you made some loans to her. Miss Seichow denies that there were any loans. She said that the friendship fizzled out over some man, and that's why you're here. What man?
My son's father.
She started to hang around with your son's father?
She started going on dates with my son's father and neglected to tell me.
So you got angry? Correct. Are you still dating him?
We never dated. We were just friends.
They slept together.
Miss Seichow, when was the first loan that you allegedly made to her?
The first loan was for a tattoo on her back on March the 25th.
Tell me about it.
We wanted tattoos, so we went to the tattoo shop, and she picked one out and I picked one out, and we both wanted to get it done, but she didn't have the money. So she asked me if I can pay for it, and I said, yeah, and then I'll just have her pay me back later. So we agreed, and then we both got our tattoos.
No.
She acknowledges in her answer that you paid for the tattoo, but she didn't say that that's how it happened.
No. What had happened was me, her, and another friend of ours, we all wanted tattoos. At that time that she wanted to get it, I wasn't working. I was going to school full-time. And she said that she wanted to go get hers. I told her I didn't have the money at the time. And she knew that because I wasn't working, I have a son, I have other priorities, and that obviously was not one. She said that she'll put it on her credit card. I told her, fine, I'll pay half. I only have enough for half. She said, fine. I gave her $100.
You weren't working.
No.
You're going to school.
Correct.
You have a child.
Correct.
Child lives with you.
Yes.
You take care of the child.
By myself, yes.
Who supports the child?
I was getting help through the county for my son.
You were getting welfare.
Correct.
So you were getting welfare, and you laid out, if I believe you, $100 for a tattoo?
Correct. I had just got my taxes out in February. I got $6,000 back for taxes.
You got $6,000 and the government was still giving you money?
Yes.
This is some good country.
I would agree.
What else did you give her money for?
After we got the tattoo done, we went over to my place, and her phone was about to be shut off
because she was late on her payment, and she asked me if I can also pay the $300 for her phone bill, and I agreed if she would pay me $50 each month in return. And she agreed, so I made the payment on my credit card, and I have the bill for that.
No. She wanted to go out of town. She did not have cash on her. I did. I had a phone bill that I needed to pay. I agreed to give her the cash if she put my phone bill on her credit card. I paid her. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know how she still brought that up.
Okay, if she did not have $170 to pay for a tattoo, how she have $300 cash to give to me?
Show me the date of the tattoo.
March 25th.
And what was the date that you paid the phone bill?
March 25th.
Show me. No. You got the dates a little bit wrong. Tattoo time, which is where you had your tattoos, was the 26th of March, the day after you laid out the $300. So first, you paid for her phone, and then you paid for her tattoo. When did you have a falling out?
It was, I believe, about June when she found out who the father of the baby was, and then she introduced me to him, and then we...
Months later, between March and June, did she pay any money towards this alleged loan?
She paid just little here and little there, and the reason how she was able to pay me back about $100, $150 was because I was doing laundry at her house, and each month I was giving her $25 to do laundry. Instead of giving her the money, I would deduct it from what she owed me.
Do you keep records of this?
I kept records of it, but then each time when I write it down and then my 3x5 cards get filled, I throw it out and then I start a new one.
Madam, how am I supposed to guess how much she paid you back if you don't know?
I don't have the other paperwork. That's
well,
why
how
I'm
am I supposed to know?
I'm suing her for $500, and that's what's on there.
Well, that's maybe what's on here, but that's not what, even if it was a loan, that's not what she owes you. So there's another agenda here, because when you have a loan, you keep records. The next time you make a loan to somebody, you write it down.
Yeah.
And you keep records. And you give them a receipt if they pay you back. You keep a book, let them sign in the book. Otherwise, you come to me, and what you're asking me to do is guess. Guess how much, if anything, she owes you. And I refuse to do that, because I have a sense that this is more about this friendship and this guy than it is about anything else.
Well, she agreed to pay me back.
You don't know how much she owes you.
That's how much she actually owes me, because I kept records, and that's
no,
how
you
much
didn't.
she owes me.
You're making it up as you're going along.
I wouldn't lie.
Put a period. Move on. You loan somebody money, keep records, keep a ledger. Not, I don't have any records because I put it on a card, and when it gets filled up, I throw it out. What's the point in keeping cards if it gets filled up and you throw it out? This is a precise place that we're at. We're at a court. So if you make a loan to somebody, it's your responsibility to keep records. It's not my responsibility. It's yours. You got it?
I understand.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
21-year-old Shoshana McKinney is suing her former friend, 26-year-old Deshae Thomas, for smashing her car's windshield.
All right, I have a complaint and a counterclaim. Each one of you alleges that the other vandalized their car. I gather you ladies knew each other. For some time you were friendly with each other. So why don't you tell me, Miss McKinney, when you allege Miss Thomas vandalized your car and what proof you have that she did so?
This happened on July 15th. She came to the club that I was at. She wanted to pull me out and fight me, but the doorman wouldn't let her get very far because you have to pay to get in. So when she saw that I wasn't going to come out and fight her, the witnesses say that...
Don't tell me what a witness says.
Okay. She smashed in my car windows.
Did you see her do that?
No, I did not.
Who's here that did see her do that?
No one.
Good. Did she ever admit to you that she did that?
No, she did not.
If there's no proof, Miss McKinney, there is no case. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, let's get to your counterclaim. When
it was on 8/16, right in front of my home.
You have any witnesses to your car being vandalized?
I saw them.
Well, tell me what you observed.
It was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I had happened to glance outside my window, and I saw a female first with like a white rag and like a big white t-shirt and some shorts and like looking like a homeless person, just like hanging around. And so I didn't think much of it. And then a couple hours went by, and I still saw that person hanging around. And then I saw that person go to a white car. And then I looked closer, and I was like, that's Shoshana in the car, and that's her. That must be her mom, because her mom has glasses and she looks like her. So I blinked my alarm, like, you know, get away from my car, and then they ran away. So I went out there, and I saw the big scratch on my car, and I said, this lady done scratched my car. That's what she was doing when she was leaning on my vehicle. So a couple hours later, they came to my door. I opened the door, and I noticed that I recognized them face to face at that point in time. Mind you, we had already had a disagreement. Shoshana had felt threatened by me because we had got into an argument, and Shoshana did a lot of things to other people besides myself. She only stole property of mine, like jewelry and clothes and stuff like that. But I just, I asked you about my stuff, Shoshana, and you lied.
We're going to keep this real simple. Is what you're telling me that on the 16th of August, you looked outside and you saw somebody hanging around your car for a long time?
Leaning on my car.
For how long were they leaning on your car?
At least an hour, and then...
1 hour. And after that hour, when she got back in a car, you went outside and looked at the car and you saw a scratch on your car.
Right.
How big was this scratch?
I'll show you pictures, Your Honor. I have pictures.
I would love to see a picture.
Please do.
You're talking about this little scratch right here?
No, that's a big scratch, Your Honor.
You're talking about this scratch. It's all the same scratch, am I correct?
It's a very big scratch. You can see the close-up.
It's right above the tire. This mark right here. So you're telling me in the hour that you say she was standing in front of your car, intent on vandalizing your car, this is all the damage she did? Did you have anything to do with vandalizing her car?
No, Your Honor.
Did you have... Listen to me! Did you have anything to do with vandalizing her car?
No, I did not.
Did you have anything to do with vandalizing her car?
No.
You were her mother, is that correct?
Yes.
Stand up.
Okay.
Were you at her house on the 16th of August, 2005?
Yes.
What were you doing there?
I was there to serve papers. I was
How
there
many
for a
visits
restraining order.
Shh. How many visits did you make to her house?
One.
And when you made the visit one time, did you serve the papers?
Yes, I did.
You were there with your daughter?
She was about a half a block away once.
Listen, stop fighting with each other. I don't know what you're mad at each other about, but vandalizing each other's cars is not a very smart thing to do. If that's what you did, there's insufficient proof that that was done. Your case is dismissed. Your counterclaim is dismissed. Goodbye. Have a happy life.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Marlene Lacey claims fellow motorist Sarah Roshan rammed her car during an incident of road rage. Sarah claims it was Marlene who ran into her. She is countersuing for the resulting damage.
I have a complaint and I have a counterclaim. Each of you claim road rage by the other. And Ms. Lacey, you claim that the defendant assaulted you.
Yes.
The defendant denies that. So I'm used to, quite frankly, hearing about these road rage incidents with guys behind the wheel of a car. Very rarely do I see mature women who get involved with that kind of stupidity. It's very distressing. When did this happen?
March 12th of 07.
What time of the day?
3:30 p.m.
Where were you coming from or going to?
I was going to a doctor's appointment southbound on Highway 99.
Anybody in the car with you?
No.
And where were you going or coming?
I was picking up my son, going southbound on 99.
Okay, tell me what happened.
I was in the, there's a carpool lane, and then there's 3 regular lanes. Mr. Sean was a carpool because she had her daughter with her, but she was in the regular lane, and traffic was all backed up. So I was trying to get to my doctor's appointment. I rushed around her in the carpool lane and came back over real quick.
So you cut her off?
Well...
Just a second. So you cut her off?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's
okay.
what you did. Just a second. Just a second. That's exactly what you did. You cut her off.
Okay.
Now, because there is no rule that if you have more than one person in the car, you have to drive in a carpool lane. The carpool lane merely allows you to be in that lane if you're more than one person.
Correct.
But there's no requirement that you go in a carpool lane if you're two people.
Correct.
I question you about that, Miss Lacey, because you hear that you were annoyed with her because she should have been in the carpool lane and not taking up space in the other 3 lanes where there was traffic. That's what you seem to indicate here.
Correct.
Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. There are tens of thousands of cars on the road. You're complaining about this lady because she didn't want to go in a fast lane with her daughter? That's ridiculous. And then you did the wrong thing. You cut her off. Now, I haven't gotten to you yet, but we will. Because I have a feeling that both of you ladies acted very badly that day. So after you cut her off, what happened?
I proceeded down southbound 99. I took the Florin Road exit and headed eastbound. There's 2 lanes on eastbound Florin. I was in the left lane, and I noticed a couple of minutes after I exited Florin Road, I noticed in my rearview mirror Miss Rashawn in the right lane, and she comes up. She's next to my car yelling at me and calling me a few names.
She's yelling at you? What is she calling you? She's calling you bad names?
She's calling me bad names.
And what did you say to her?
I didn't say anything. I was like, you know, I was trying to get to my doctor's appointment. That's all I was trying to do. And she started calling me the B word and yelling at me for cutting her off, et cetera, et cetera. And next thing I knew, her car is over in my lane, hits my car. I'm looking, and in my lane is a tan SUV, and my first thought was, this lady is going to make me hit this SUV in front of me. So I slammed on my brakes. She had so much force on my car that she ended up over in the left lane, and I took a right onto Palmer House, right here. And I came down here. Because I wasn't sure, like I said, she was extremely upset, so I was scared to stop or anything. I got on the phone, was trying to get through to 911. She kept following me, and then I lost her, and I came back, and she was parked. So I was trying to take a picture of her license plate. So when I got through to 911, I would have the license plate number. As I was focusing in on the license plate, I had my windows down. She gets out of her car, comes up to my vehicle, to the passenger side, starts screaming and yelling at me on how I hit her car, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, no, I didn't. Next thing I knew, she reaches in through the passenger side window, grabs my purse out of my car, and I was in shock. I was like, wait a minute, that's stealing, that's my purse. So I get out of my car, I go around the back of my car, and she dumps my purse and throws everything on the ground. And I go to pick it up, and she rushes me, scratches me and everything. She is just going at me. And I was in shock, and I believe, excuse my language, but I think I said, what the F, that's assault? And she goes, no, your boyfriend beats you up. I'm like, oh, is that the way we play the game? And then she continues with these 2 gentlemen came out, pulled her off of me. I asked them if they would stick around and talk to the police. They said no. I went to pick up my belongings off of the ground, and when I went to stand back up, she pushes me. I didn't have a chance to brace myself or anything. I fell back, and my head hit the street, twisted my ankle, bruise on my right arm, everything's on the right side. Again, I get back up and start trying to retrieve my stuff again, and that's when the officer pulled up.
Okay, your version.
That was totally a lie.
Your version.
My version is, we were southbound on 99 on our way to pick up my son. We were in the carpool lane. She's tailgating me. My daughter noticed that.
Don't tell me what anybody else knows.
Okay,
What happened from your perspective?
Okay, she went around on the shoulder to get around me. I wasn't in the number 2 lane. I was in the number 1 lane. She went around on the shoulder, started driving wildly. She was weaving in and out of traffic, got back in the carpool lane. I exited off the freeway. My daughter noticed when we were over the overpass. She said, the same car is getting off the freeway. Is that hers? I said, I don't know. So we were driving east on Florin, and then all of a sudden, I saw a car driving up fast behind me. So I moved over to the right lane, and lo and behold, bam, she crashes right into me.
Where was the damage to your car?
Got pictures right here.
See it.
And you can
tell. You
tell.
have pictures of the damage to your car?
Yes.
And she hit me. Shh.
Why don't I have any pictures of the front of either of these cars?
Because I didn't hit her. She hit me. She's claiming...
I said, why don't I have any pictures of the front of either of these cars?
Because there was no damage in the front of my car.
But if I had a picture of that, it would have been helpful.
Okay.
Because she sideswiped me. She didn't...
I did not sideswipe you.
No. This car looks to me as if this car, this is where the impact was in the
That's
front.
her tire marks.
That's where she
Her
crashed
tire
into
was-
me.
Well-
And then you can see on my picture where she stayed on my...
The damage to her car is mostly on the side.
Right.
Damage to your car, mostly over here. Okay, so she hits your car, and?
She tried to veer me to the right into a ditch. Why I had a picture of the ditch there. And then I managed to get ahead of her, so I passed the light, but she went to the right on Palmer House and tried to run from me. So I was like, she's not going to run from me. So I ended up backing up in the street and following her down the street. And she made a U-turn in someone's driveway. I came around behind her. She backed up and just crashed right into the back of my car. You could see the dent by the gas tank there. And then she managed to drive back down the street, went into a church parking lot. She did a donut in there, and I got a picture of the marks on the ground there, if you look at the picture. And she was heading straight for me like she wanted to play chicken. So I was like, this lady has no regard for me and my daughter. And first of all, why would I even hit her with my daughter in the car?
You have a police report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to take a look at the police reports, please.
And I'm a commercial truck driver, so why would I want to ruin my driving record? That's my livelihood. I am a Class A truck driver, so I have no reason to be crashing into anybody.
You told the police that after you took the pocketbook out of her car, which you acknowledged that you did, which was the wrong thing to do, you understand, that she slapped you.
Yes.
Where did she slap you?
Right here on the right side of my cheek.
And that's when you hit her?
Yes.
You have photographs of your injuries?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them, please. You hurt her pretty badly, madam. You hurt her pretty badly. That's unreasonable.
She hit me.
I'm not sure about that. No, you say she slapped you. I believe that, but you assaulted her.
She hit me first.
No, I don't believe that. Not only don't I believe it, but even if she slapped you in the face after you took her purse, she's allowed to do that.
Well, I didn't steal her purse.
Yes, you did.
I grabbed it, yes.
Yes, you did. You stole her purse. The purpose of your removing it was not to steal its contents, was to make sure that you had identifying information about her because she was leaving. You could have had the same identifying information by just taking down her license plate number. You chose not to do that. You committed a felony. You reached into her car and took her purse. You lost your temper. That's a felony.
Well, anybody would under the circumstances.
No, my dear.
Well, not stealing the purse,
I
but
wouldn't
I
have
was
done it.
hot.
I would have stayed in my car until a police officer came. I would have locked my doors, rolled up my windows,
I called
and said,
911.
You may have called 911, but you stay in your car, especially when you have your daughter with you. You don't know what kind of nut this is. All you did was say to me, this person was driving erratically. That's what you said to me. She cut me off. She rammed my car. And instead of sitting in your car and protecting your daughter, you got out of the car and stole a pocketbook.
Actually, I got out of the car to estimate my damages, and she drove up alongside of me, started yelling at me.
So what? So, further proof.
But I was away from her.
You weren't away from her. You walked up to her car and reached into her bag. You can't do that. You understand that? Yeah, good. I'm glad you understand it. And you should be more responsible if you have your child with you. Now, go ahead.
I also asked her if she was on medication, and she said she was.
It's very possible. And if she told you she was on medication, I mean, I know that you didn't ask it in a calm way, because if somebody rams your car, as she rammed your car, you're not calm. So you probably said, what are you on?
No, I asked her, are you on any medication?
And she said?
Yes, I am.
Was that before or after you assaulted her?
That was before.
You got me? In any event, you have medical bills?
I actually don't have medical bills except for like my prescriptions to like $60 for prescriptions.
Okay.
I also have a report from, because there's more injuries than the pictures, because when I fell, my head hit the
I'd
ground.
like to see it.
So there's
I didn't cause her to hit her head. She did that on her own.
Medical report.
And my daughter can witness to that.
I'm not going to call your daughter as a witness.
Okay.
I think you put her through quite enough.
Marlene Lacey is accusing fellow motorist Sarah Rochon of ramming her car during an incident of road rage.
What?
It says in the police report that there's no visual marks on her face. She said,
No, I read that there were no visual marks. She was not injured. No, I understand that.
Okay.
I do believe, however, that you damaged her car.
Okay.
I think that she lost it, and I think that you behaved very badly that day, Miss Lacey.
Okay.
Very badly. I think that you were in a rush to get to a doctor's appointment, and you were driving erratically on the road in order to do that. You placed a lot of people's lives in jeopardy, because that's what... You practically acknowledged that in your statement, but she's not allowed to lose her temper and assault you. Now, you were banged up.
Yes.
You were banged up. I'm awarding you $3,500 in fees for your pain and suffering,
Okay.
medical bills, whatever they were.
Okay.
I'm awarding her $3,500 on her counterclaim to fix her car for the damage that you caused.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
That means each of you gets nothing. That's all.
Yes, ma'am.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Carolyn Doyle is suing her ex-boyfriend, Matthew Peterson, for a loan to fix his teeth. Matthew says he helped Carolyn fix her house.
Miss Doyle, you used to live with this gentleman. How long did you live with him?
Matthew and I started dating July 4th of 1999, and he lived with myself and my children off and on for a total of about 2 years. 1 year, then moved out, then moved back in for a year, then moved back out.
And during that time, which we'll pinpoint better later, you claim that without your authorization, he forged your name as a cosigner to a loan for some dental work that he wanted.
I don't know if he ever signed my name. He did open an account and took out a dental loan using my Social Security number, and it shows up on my credit record as
Okay, but you never signed it.
No, I did not.
Well, so somebody signed your name to it.
I never saw the document, Your Honor. Okay.
I assume he has the document somewhere in his pocket. In any event, he didn't pay the loan?
Correct.
And it's negatively impacted on your credit?
Correct.
You no longer are together, and you want him to pay the bill?
Correct.
Smile pretty, Mr. Peterson. What was wrong with your teeth?
2 porcelain crowns on my front teeth, and both of them were fractured. And
So it was cosmetic work.
more or less, without them, though, I just have 2 posts there,
Not attractive, but clearly you can live that way.
I suppose.
Now, when did you want to replace these 2 porcelain crowns?
I was living with it cracked for probably about a year or so, and then in the process of chewing gum, it completely broke off one afternoon, and I was left with just the post that goes under the crown, my real tooth, and it was somewhat of an emergency at that point. You know, the following morning, the dentist squeezed me in, and
Now, were you and Miss Doyle living together at the time?
no.
Were you still seeing each other
Yes.
exclusively?
Yes.
Any reason why you weren't living together?
We lived together when I owned my condo, and I wanted to flip that into a single-family home because I have 3 kids, and I wanted him to have a nice home with a backyard in a neighborhood, and he didn't agree with my decision to sell the condo. I was buying it on my own. He wasn't buying it with me, but he disagreed with my decision to sell the condo and buy the house. So when I
Well,
sold...
just my own curiosity, why?
I think he thought things were fine the way they were, and so why move?
Okay, so that's when he moved out, but you still continued to see each other.
Correct.
So now the dentist squeezes you in August.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm listening.
Okay, I went to the dentist's office in the morning upon looking at the other front tooth that was fractured as well, so they said, we have to take care of both of them. I couldn't cover it on such short notice, so they said, well, you can go ahead and apply for this in-house credit we have here, which I did, was denied. They said, do you have a cosigner? At that point, I called Carolyn from the office, and she said, yeah, here's my number, here's the Social Security number, and I'll be back. You know, I'll have to go down there and actually sign the document at a later date, which I don't know if that ever happened or not. And they proceeded with the work, and that was it.
Why didn't you pay the bill?
I was making monthly payments.
Now you're looking at your shoes.
I made the first couple payments, and then I came late on one. She said, I can't have this affecting my credit payments, and then she said, let me just pay off the whole loan and you can just pay me. And then when we ultimately ended up breaking up, walked out, and that was the end of that. And I had done considerable amounts of work on her house, remodeling, fixing it up,
Which
paintings.
I paid him for.
Just a second. Judge, please don't interrupt.
I'm sorry.
And I just kind of figured the whole thing was a wash. It was easier just to get out of each other's lives and move on.
So you mean you stuck Miss Doyle, who is a single parent, raising 3 children, with bills for your cosmetic dentistry? I mean, you expect me to accept that, sir? And you think that I am not going to humiliate you in front of 10 million people? Go ahead.
Upon our last conversation when I left, I was served with papers days later, so there was never any opportunity to discuss any kind of payment plan. She never asked me for the money.
Why should she have to ask you for anything? How old are you?
32.
You work?
Yes, ma'am.
You have children?
No.
So whatever work you do, you just manage to take care of yourself,
Correct.
right? Now, what about Miss Doyle? Does she work?
Yes, she does.
And she takes care of 3 children?
Yes, she does.
And she runs a house? Let me ask you a question. When you were living in the house, did she have household help?
No, myself.
Did she have, yeah, I know how helpful you are. Did she have household help?
No,
Who did the laundry?
she did.
Who cleaned the bathrooms?
She did.
Who had a full-time job?
She did.
Who had 3 children?
She does.
Who had 2 cracked porcelain crowns?
That's me.
Are you embarrassed?
When you lay it out like that, yes, I am.
Well, if your mother didn't lay it out feel like that, I'm going to lay it out feel like that. How much was your dental work?
All said and done, approximately $2,700.
How much of that did you pay?
About $300.
What kind of car do you drive?
Ford truck,
What year?
2000.
Were you making payments on it in 2004?
Yes.
Were you paying rent in 2004?
Yes.
You get where I'm going?
Yes, I do.
Peterson. Anything else you want to say?
I'd like to add just the extent of the work I did around her house. It was a verbal agreement.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Peterson. I just asked you a few questions. When you were living together, did you take a shower?
Yes.
Who cleaned the bathroom?
She did.
When you were living together, did you change your underwear at least every other day?
Yes, ma'am.
Who did the laundry?
She did.
You get
Not
my,
exclusively.
You get my drift?
I get your drift.
I won't even go into other more intimate details, sir, but I can almost guarantee you this. Believe me, you got the better end of the bargain. She knows what I mean. So do most of the other women. You owe her $2,400. Pay it. Thank you. That's all.
23-year-old Anthony DeCarlos is suing vet technician Sharon Yaffe for failing to return his miniature pinscher, Phoenix.
Mr. DeCarlos, you are suing Ms. Jaffe because you claim that because of her actions, your pet was neutered.
Yes, ma'am.
Without your permission. And she caused you a great deal of stress when she refused to divulge the name of the people who she had given the dog to when your dog turned up astray and missing. What I gather from your complaint is you were not at home. The puppy was at home with friends of yours or roommates.
Roommates.
And they negligently allowed the puppy to escape the house. How
Yes.
old was the puppy at the time?
8 months.
And how many people were supposed to be watching him?
Just one of my roommates was at home at the time.
And how did he let the dog out?
He was going to India for a trip, and he was putting up a mailbox. We have 2 doors, and my dog got out because he left the top door open and the bottom door, and he got out while he was doing that.
So he was negligent?
Yes.
On what date did he run away from your house?
On the 25th of June.
And how long had you had the puppy at the time?
I'd had him for probably like 4 months.
Where did you get him from?
A breeder.
And how much did you pay for him?
Like $300.
Are you sure?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Mr. DeCarlos?
Sorry. Yes.
Paid $300. Did you get papers for him?
Yes, ma'am. I have
I'd like to
papers.
see them. He's a miniature pinscher.
Yes.
I had one of those when I was a child. Okay, so June 25th, the puppy escapes. What did you do to find him?
Well, when I found out, I was at the library when this happened. I came home and found that my dog was gone. And so I was like, oh my God, what happened? So I went, like, immediately put up flyers to find my dog around my block and everything like that. And my roommate did help me, you know, so he did feel bad, but I can't blame him, you know. So we
Look, stop talking so fast. Oh. Doesn't like the camera.
Probably not. It's okay. Phoenix.
Feisty little thing. Anyway, so you put up flyers. What else did you do?
I would put up flyers.
What else did you do?
I called.
Who did you call?
Someone that found my dog responded to the flyers, and they contacted me and let me know where they had taken my dog to.
Okay, so you yourself did not call the animal rescue, animal control.
Oh, I visited numerous animal shelters around where I live.
Okay.
And I called like the animal patrol like where I live because I would figure like he'd be around in my area, but that wasn't the case at all.
So somebody saw the flyer with the dog's picture and called you.
Yes, ma'am.
On what date was that?
I'm not sure of the day exactly.
Well, it becomes important in this scenario.
Okay. It was probably like 2 to 3 weeks later, after the 25th.
3 weeks later?
Yes.
So we're now mid-July.
Yes.
Okay. And the person who called you, just for the purpose of this, said that your dog was injured?
Right. They had told me that he had been clipped by a car, and he was fine. Like, he was, by the time they took him to the animal hospital, like, he was walking and he was fine. And they told me that they had admitted him and they gave him to a nurse, and she took him home. And then they gave me the number of the place, so I called, and she definitely agreed. She said I took him home and I cared for him or whatever. And then she gave him to Sharon Yaffe.
Okay.
Sad.
He's really not happy. Why don't you take him out, okay?
No, sorry.
Got a heart of a lion, that little guy. So the person at the animal shelter, they took care of your pet who had been injured.
Yes, ma'am.
And somebody was wonderful enough to take him home, nurse him back to health, and then turned him over to the defendant.
Yes.
Miss Yaffe, you work for the shelter?
I work for a shelter.
And who was it that gave you the puppy?
A co-worker of mine who was working at the animal hospital when the animal was delivered.
On what date did you take custody of him?
July 3rd, which would have been a Monday morning.
Okay, go ahead.
The prior weekend, the co-worker at my weekend job, which is an emergency animal hospital, advised she had been recuperating a dog at home for 10 to 14 days, wanted to know if I would be able to find it a home. And I told her, if it's something small with a nice disposition, nothing that bites, I can always find something small a home. I did have a friend of mine who has a geriatric miniature pinscher, and that would have been my first outlet for the dog. I picked the dog up that morning from the animal hospital, which would have been Monday morning. The animal had already been neutered.
The animal had been neutered at the animal hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
So before you took custody of the animal, it was neutered?
Correct.
Go ahead.
I picked the dog up. I called my friend and let him know what I had. He contacted his wife. He has a daughter at home who's like 10 years old. And they said they would try the dog out. So the gentleman came and picked the animal up from me that same day.
Okay. When did Mr. DeCarlos contact you?
Friday, which would have been July 7th, I believe.
And he described the dog?
Yes.
And when did he get the dog back?
I'm not sure of the exact day.
When did you get the dog back, sir?
I'm not sure of the exact day either.
It was in July.
Yeah, I had to get a lawyer to actually get my dog back from her. I even offered, when I spoke with her, I was like, I will pay, these people, I'll buy them a new dog. I just want my dog back. That's all that I really cared about. And she was like, no, I'm not gonna, I don't want to make these people unhappy and this, that, and the other. But I'm like, it's my dog. I came forward. It's my dog. And on top of everything, Your Honor, she lied. She was lying to me about everything.
I never lied.
Your Honor, she told me that the dog was in the facility when it was not. And I have documentation from her job right here that says that they did an investigation on her and they found her guilty of everything.
Well, let me see what you have. Ms. Yaffe, you did not make the dog available to the plaintiff when he called you. You want to tell me why?
The animal had been in the home already.
4 days.
4 days.
4 days.
I was really apprehensive about contacting the people and letting them know that an owner had come forward for the animal. They've got a 10-year-old daughter. I knew the dog was in a good home, a good, responsible home.
Okay. You made a misjudgment.
In hindsight, yes.
You made a misjudgment. Okay. I see Mr. Takala said what this says is that they conducted an investigation to determine whether or not Ms. Yaffe's actions were within departmental guidelines of the animal control. And it says that the actions of the employees were not within our best policy nor our best practice of the police department and animal control facility, and your complaint has been sustained. Okay. So you should have gotten your dog back.
Yes.
So?
I did get my dog back. Well, the reason why I'm suing is because my dog was neutered.
That's not her problem. That's your roommate's problem. That's not her problem. Nobody did anything to intentionally inflict injury on your puppy. Nobody. What happens is when an animal, I assume that something must have happened to the puppy's tags and or chip, which you should have had on the puppy so that the puppy could have been easily identifiable.
Yes, ma'am.
And that wasn't there. Am I right, Mr. DeCarlos?
Yes, ma'am, you're right.
It had a chip inserted in the puppy, which everybody recommends now.
Yes.
Or you had a collar with your telephone number and way to contact you, we wouldn't be here today. So that's your fault. It's not her fault that your dog was neutered. She didn't neuter the dog.
Right, but she knew it was taking place, like she knew about it.
So what? Not every grievance, Mr. DeCarlos, is a lawsuit. Now, I agree with you that the defendant, and she acknowledges in hindsight, she should have turned the dog back over to you. It was a mistake on her part. She can't say, well, they've come attached to the dog in 4 days and I don't feel comfortable about calling, you know, and say you have to return the dog to its rightful owner. But she's not responsible for the fact that your dog was neutered.
So should I, like, sue, like, the animal hospital that they have no documentation, or?
Absolutely not. You shouldn't sue anybody. You should take your dog home and teach him not to growl. You know, you got your dog back in one piece, and the fact that he's neutered, what difference does it make?
Well, I was planning on breeding him.
Plan something else. Your own negligence in failing to have proper identification on the dog caused the dog to go into a shelter without any known information. That's your negligence, so go sue yourself. Your case against the defendant is dismissed. Goodbye.
Marcia Lambert claims her mother's neighbor, Tammy Kedward, owes for spray painting vulgarities onto her car and punching her in the face. Tammy claims Marcia was sleeping with her husband. She is countersuing for emotional distress.
Miss Lambert, you were having a romantic relationship with the defendant's husband.
Yes, Your Honor.
I assume this was the husband.
Yes, Your Honor.
This was about a year ago?
A little over a year, yes, ma'am.
Miss Kedward lost it with you one day, came to where you were staying, and assaulted you.
Yes, Your Honor.
She admits that she assaulted you. She also admits that she pled guilty to a simple assault, and she received a fine. Her defense to your action for damages for both your medical bills and your pain and suffering is that you weren't injured. She is counterclaiming for her medical bills, she says, because you've caused her a lot of stress. When did you meet Miss Kedward's husband?
About July 9th of 2005.
Where?
At my mother's house.
What relationship does he have with your mother?
They're the next door neighbors to my mom.
Were they both living together at the time?
Yes, they were.
Well, when did you start a relationship with Mr. Kedward?
After he told me that he had asked Tammy for a divorce.
But they were still together?
Sort of, kind of.
They were still living under the same roof?
They were living, yes.
Big mistake on your part. Big. When did you start the relationship?
What exact date?
Yeah.
That it turned romantic?
Yes.
Was August 28th of 2005.
So it didn't take long. Now, when did Miss Kedward assault you?
On August 31st.
Tell me about it.
I was over visiting my mother. My car was parked in the back driveway. She came over and spray painted my car with some obscenities and bright orange paint. I saw her do it. We went back inside to call the police. She knocked on the front door, asked me to come outside. My mother came outside with me. She was yelling all kinds of profanities. And
That's not true.
And I was standing between her and my mother tried to explain some stuff to her, and I was looking at my mother. She reached over, grabbed the back of my hair, yanked, jumped on top of me, punched me, blood went everywhere. Meanwhile,
punched you where?
In the nose, and then punched me again in the cheek. Meanwhile, my mother managed to pull her off of me, and my 82-year-old grandmother was standing on the porch calling the police.
And you were arrested?
No.
Taken into custody?
No.
Did you press charges?
Yes, I did.
Okay, Miss Kedward. Why don't you tell me what happened on the 31st of August?
I drove up from work. I got out of the car, and she came out of her mother's house and said
that is a
something.
lie, Your Honor.
Listen to me. I cut her off when she interrupted you. Don't speak until she's finished. Go ahead.
I got out of the car and she came out of the front door and said something that I didn't understand what it was that she said. Nevertheless, she said something. And I just went inside and I called my husband, told my husband that she was saying something to me.
But you didn't know what?
I didn't know what. It was something.
Well, why would you, just a second, Ms. Kedwood, why would you call your husband if she said something that you didn't understand?
Because I had found out 3 days prior that there was something going on between them.
Okay, did you confront your husband with it?
Yes.
And what did he tell you?
He told me the truth. He told me that they were having a relationship, but that it was more as a friend relationship, that he didn't say that it was not intimate. He just told me that basically they had been doing a lot of talking on the phone.
So when you came home on the 31st and you claimed Miss Lampert said something to you, called your husband, and your husband said what?
He said, look, I don't know what's going on. Why don't you just go over there and talk to her about it, and y'all figure it out, and then you call me.
Is that what you said to her? Why don't you just go over there and ask her? Just that's either a yes or no.
Yes.
That was the first time that I ever thought of going over there.
So your cheating husband tells you to go over to the woman's house and to talk it out with her.
Yes.
And you'd listen to him.
Well, it's not that I listened to him. It's more that I thought, go over there. Sounds like a great idea. Why don't I just go over there and find out exactly what she said? And it was probably not the greatest decision in the world. But
well, first thing that you did, you went over and you sprayed her car, because that you paid for, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you painted her car before you went to ask her.
Correct.
What she had said that you didn't hear.
Right.
And then what happened?
I went over and
You sprayed her car.
I sprayed her car, went back inside and...
Back inside where?
My house.
What happened to speaking to her and about finding out what happened?
That was after.
So then you came out again, worked up a really good mad.
I was infuriated, to say the least.
Fine. So you came out.
I had asked her numerous times, very nicely, please leave my husband alone.
Why didn't you ask him?
I asked him.
So, and what did he say?
She was the instigator.
Stand up. How tall are you?
6'3".
How much do you weigh?
260.
What do you do for a living?
Mechanic.
Strong?
I guess so.
Can you walk around?
Yes.
You can walk away from her, can't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Sit down. Get what I mean? Shh. Get what I mean?
Yes, ma'am, I do. And
Listen, there's only one person that owes you the responsibility and the respect and has taken a vow.
You're exactly right.
That's him.
You're right.
Not her.
I felt like if she had any compassion or any feeling, that she would have backed off and she would have had respect, at least for my child.
He's supposed to have respect for your child.
I understand that. I truly believe that he did make a bad decision.
Right. But so why did you go over? So you went over there, you assaulted her, and you lost it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, then you have to suffer for that. Okay, Ms. Kedwood, what kind of consequence did the criminal justice system impose when you pled guilty to assault?
I had a fine of $341 and a Class C misdemeanor.
Tell me about the surgery that you had 3 months later.
I had actually 2 surgeries to try to correct. I was having trouble breathing through the right side of my nose.
Can I see the medical report?
Yes,
Your Honor?
Yeah.
She told my husband, he asked her the next day after the assault, are you okay? And she told him, it's no big deal. The same thing happened to me about a year ago when a girl hit me in a bar.
Okay.
That's a lie, Your Honor.
Just a second. Let's say that's true. What difference does it make?
So what's to say if she had any surgeries that it wasn't to correct what had happened then?
It's possible it was. That doesn't leave you, that doesn't, shh, quiet! That doesn't let you off the hook.
I understand.
She doesn't have to sue for any medical expenses. She can just sue for pain and suffering.
I understand.
Good. Okay, so the first study date in the emergency room was September 1st, and it did say previous surgical changes are noted. Okay, so you had previous surgeries in your nose. Is that right?
From 92.
Okay, good. Now, after this happened on August 31st, did you continue a relationship with Mr. Kedward?
Yes, I did.
For how long?
It actually ended August 1st of 2006.
I don't think that's true, Your
Yeah,
Honor.
that's a bunch of bull.
No, you were at my mother's house.
Shh, listen to me. Whether it lasted 9 months or 10 months or 12 months, it doesn't make any difference. It lasted beyond that. Was Mr. Kedwood living with his wife during that time?
He went back to her the end of November of 2005.
Okay, but you continued the relationship with him months after that.
Right.
Not smart. What was he telling you all this time?
Just that he wasn't sure what he wanted and that they had a lot to work out if it was going to work and that he still loved me and he always would.
Well, Miss Lambert, why did you continue the relationship with him?
It's not the first time she's done this. I'm sorry.
Takes two to tango.
Yes, ma'am.
His feet work in both directions. If he's back with you and sweet-talking her, that's not a good thing.
The thing about it is, Your Honor, you say I'm strong physically. I'm assuming that's what you're asking. You know, what about mentally when you have a woman like this calling you all the time and not leaving you alone? Yay. Hey.
You don't really want an answer to that question, sir.
Well.
You don't want an answer to that question, Mr. Kedwood.
When I asked Miss Lambert to leave my husband alone, my words to her were, for God's sakes, Marcia, I live next door to your mother. Please just stop.
She used very bad judgment.
She told me that she would be living next door to her mother.
Miss Kedwood.
That's a lie.
She used very bad judgment, especially after he came home in November.
He never really left home.
Don't tell me he never really left home. Stop me seasick. Still.
Yes, ma'am.
He exercised very bad judgment. What he's trying to tell me is he may be strong physically, but mentally he's mush. That's just an excuse. What he's trying to say is, how can I withstand the wiles of Jezebel? That's ridiculous. If
That
you
was
bought it,
not what I
quiet.
was saying.
Quiet. There are all kinds of temptations in this world, madam. And you hope that when you marry somebody, that they're going to be able to withstand the temptations. And if they can't, it's their fault. It's not somebody else's fault. In any event, she's suing you for $4,000.
Yes, ma'am.
That, she said, represents her medical bills. You are clearly responsible for that. I want to hear about your counterclaim. You have 1 minute.
I went to the hospital that night and was in the hospital for 2 days following. I was extremely stressed out over the whole situation. I asked her repeatedly to leave my husband alone. She told me she would do what she wanted to do when she wanted to do it. And I lost it. And I have to admit that
I'm talking about your counterclaim.
I went to the hospital and I was there for 2 days because of the immense stress that this, I don't even want to call her a woman, has put me through, that she continues to put me through to this day.
What about him? Why don't you sue him?
I married him for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in front of God, in front of all of our friends. And it's my choice to forgive him, and we have been through counseling.
Perfect. Listen to me. He's the one that owes you the responsibility of doing the right thing.
Me.
Doesn't she owe us to leave us alone?
I have. Excuse me?
Excuse me? Outside. Put him out.
Come on.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, sure.
I was under so much stress from the immoral actions of this person that I suffered a miscarriage. My child has had to be in counseling. I have had a lot of issues because of her, and to this day.
Because of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Because of them?
She instigated it.
Because you don't get it. You have to put it in your head. He owes you the responsibility of doing the right thing. She doesn't. He has a contract with you, moral contract and a legal contract. He violated the contract. And I would have very little sense of an obligation to mitigate your damages if Miss Lambert did not continue the relationship after November, when she knew that the two of you were trying to work things out. Miss Lambert fully understood that. From November until, she says, August of 2006, she continued a relationship with him. That's going to hurt you, Miss Lambert, because then you knew that what you were doing was interfering with a relationship, and there is a cause of action. It's a cause of action in common law called alienation of affection. That means you are contributing to alienating the affection of her husband, and you know what that's going to cost you? $4,000. So I rule in your favor on your lawsuit in the amount of $4,000. And I rule in your favor on the counterclaim in the amount of $4,000. Neither one of you are getting anything. That's it. Goodbye.
19-year-old Preston Wamsley is suing neighbor Audrey Martinez and her son, 17-year-old Chris Rivera, for the cost of a Mitsubishi Eclipse. Preston claims Chris totaled the vehicle.
You and the defendants are neighbors. This is
Christopher Rivera.
17.
Yes.
And this is your mother. At some point, Christopher came to your house and asked if he could borrow your car. You knew he was 17.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is not an answer in court. Is fine outside here. You
Yes,
say
Your Honor.
yes, no, whatever. Your Honor is a nice touch. He said he needed your car so he could take his sister to school.
Yes.
But that was a partial truth. You know what that means?
I'm not sure.
It means it was only partially true, half true. A little piece of it was true. Some of it was a lie. You didn't just want to take your sister to school. You did something else with the car, right?
Yes.
What else did you do with the car?
I gave my cousin a ride home.
And after you gave your cousin a ride home, then what else did you do with the car?
And I let April drive it.
Who's April?
Some girl.
Was she in the car?
Yes.
I didn't get that part of the story. How did April get into the car?
Because she was with my cousin.
How old is April?
17, I believe.
I want you to keep your voice up. You don't mind my yelling at him, do you?
No, ma'am.
Yes. And April wrecked the car.
Yes.
So, Mr. Wamsley, you expect Mrs. Martinez to pay for your car.
Yeah, and I was under the impression that he had a license.
I don't care whether you thought he had a license to drive race cars or drive a ship to the moon. You have no right to loan a car to a minor. None. Now, I read your complaint and you said, well, you thought he had a license because you saw him driving around in his mother's car.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well,
Your
his
Honor.
mother wants to be a jerk and let him drive around in her car. That's her prerogative and her problem. But how do you know that his mother gave him permission to drive around in her car? Maybe he was just driving around in it when she wasn't home. Is that possible?
It could be, yes.
Sure. Does your son have a driver's license?
No, ma'am.
You ever give him permission to drive your car?
No.
You drive your mother's car?
Yes.
Where's your mother when you drive her car?
At home.
Does she know you drive her car?
No.
See what I mean? As a matter of fact, if he was injured while in your car that you let him borrow, she would sue you and would have collected. Do you understand? When you're dealing with a minor, and he's a minor, he's a stupid minor, and he's dishonest, right?
Yes.
You do not do anything that would require parental permission, because when you talk in terms of minors, they are referred to as minors in the law because they're too stupid to make their own judgments. He's too stupid to make his own judgment. And you gave him a weapon. Was April hurt?
No, ma'am.
Anybody hurt?
No, ma'am.
You are a very lucky man, sir. You should go home and thank your lucky stars that somebody isn't suing you and taking your house away. Your case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
22-year-old Leonardo Saucedo is suing his former roommate, 23-year-old Jessica Trejo, for breaking their apartment lease.
Mr. Saucedo, this young lady was a friend of yours and you decided to rent an apartment together.
That's correct.
You signed a one-year lease. It was a two-bedroom apartment from what I gather. You moved in. Shortly after you moved in, she moved out.
Yes.
And you were able to terminate the lease early, but it cost you several $1,000s. And you believe that because she moved out without any good cause, that she should be responsible for the early termination fees on the lease.
That's correct.
I've tried and tried to find the defense that is in Ms. Trejo's answer, and the best I can figure out is you were playing your radio too loud.
No, that's not true.
I don't know what her defense is. When did you move into this apartment, Mr. Saucedo?
We moved there September 2006.
And how long had you known the defendant before you decided to be roommates?
About a year. I had met her on MySpace.
You didn't have a romantic relationship?
We did prior to moving in. We were talking, kind of dating, but we ended that before we moved in because we didn't want to have conflict with each other.
And did that work out okay?
There was one occasion. Something happened, but that's it.
Everything else was...
Everything else was perfect.
She stayed in her room and you stayed in yours?
Exactly, yes. No problems. We both respect each other's space.
When did you move out?
February 2007.
Why?
Because I felt like I was not in a good environment, because he would have his music all loud. I would work 13 hours a day, 6 days out of the week, and my job is very serious.
What kind of job do you have?
I'm a laboratory technician.
Yeah?
And pretty much I have to get my sleep in order for me to do my bone marrow slides and whatever I do. And he would bring girls over to the house, always playing the music loud. And I could never get my sleep. I would come home 11 o'clock at night from work, and I would shut my door, try to go to sleep. I couldn't. There was always things slamming doors, slamming cabinets, and there was no way of me getting my sleep.
That's not true.
I would be going to sleep until 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning.
So that's your defense. Your defense was that he played the music too loud.
Not only that, Your Honor.
Well, then get to something more meaningful, madam.
Okay. Another thing was we did have a sexual relation while we were living together. We did. And another thing was he owed a lot of money to me before we moved in. And, like, the money that he owed me and, like, the music and all that he was always playing. And not only that, but the foul language and the sex he was having with other girls. And I would always bring my friends over, which it was a 14-year-old daughter from my best friends.
Yeah.
And they would come over and come and visit me. And when they would come and visit me, it was at the wrong time, to the point that he would be having sex and the 14-year-old girl would be listening to that.
It's not true.
I'm still waiting for a legal reason for you moving out and breaking your lease.
Because it was not an environment for me to be in.
Should have thought of that before you signed the lease.
He was not like that the way we were.
He was always like, you mean he's a psychopath? He's got bipolar disorder? He's 2 different personalities? You know him for a year. This is who he is.
Yes, but before that, when we moved in together, he was not the way he was before.
So,
it was a whole totally different person.
So what you do is, since you work 12 hours a day, you say, listen, I'm going to stay in this apartment. You leave. I'll take over the lease. But I'm not happy with living with you here. You just don't leave.
I did tell him that. I gave him my 30-day notice.
You can't give him 30-day notice. You have a 1-year lease. How could you give him 30-day notice? Tell him I'm leaving. Goodbye. I'm giving you 30 days.
I did give him a 30-day notice. Plus, not only that, but I just felt like I couldn't be in the apartment anymore. It was affecting with my job.
So I just told you what you should have done. You should have said to him, I think you have to move out because we're not getting along.
I told him that we needed to move out.
Not we. Not we. He.
Okay, well, I did not want it to be there no longer either.
Why? No, now
I was going to pay whatever was the rest on the lease.
Yes.
Okay? Now, he decided not to leave from there because he didn't want to live with his grandparents anymore.
You're double talking, Ms. Trejo. You're double talking.
He did not want to live with his grandparents.
I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about you. Why didn't you say, I can't stand your music, I can't stand your social life, please, you move out and I'll stay in the apartment, or you stay in the apartment, I'll move out. If you can't get another roommate, I'll pay the rent or the early termination fees.
We did have a communication in that. And sometimes I wouldn't be able to have a communication with him because of my overtime and the hours I was working. So I would leave a note to him, letting him know the problems that it would affect me in my environment, me being there. So.
You can't act like a baby. You can't pack up your suitcase and leave when you have a lease, when you have an obligation. Do you understand that?
I understand.
Where did you go when you left him?
I had went back.
I don't want you to think about where you went. I want you to just tell me where you went.
To my mom's house.
That's an answer. And are you still there?
Yes, I am.
And you don't pay rent?
Yes, I do.
How much rent do you pay?
$500.
I don't believe you. How's that? I don't believe you. I think that you're a slick talker. But I think you did the wrong thing with regard to this young man. You have no valid reason that you moved out of that apartment. None. The radio was too loud? Tell him to turn the radio down. You wrote him letters? Let me see the letters. I assume you kept a copy.
No, I didn't.
Well, of course not, because it's a lot of baloney. You don't like him having women in the apartment? That was your arrangement. Your arrangement was you were moving in as friends. That's why you moved into a 2-bedroom apartment instead of a 1-bedroom apartment. How much did you pay in fees to terminate the lease?
In total, I paid $4,145, but I'm only suing for $3,080 because I'm paying for my half of the rent for the 2 months.
Let me see your figures, please. How many months did you stay there, Mr. Saucedo, after she moved out?
The first week of March was my last week there.
And where did you go?
I went back to my grandma's house.
How old are you?
22.
And you?
23.
That's where you belong. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,080. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Carolyn Kruger is suing her brother, Kevin Perks, for his share of their mother's funeral. Carolyn says Kevin is the only sibling who refuses to pay.
Miss Kruger, Mr. Perks is your brother.
Yes, he is.
And your claim is that he is responsible for a portion of your mother's funeral expenses.
That's correct.
Mr. Perks says he is not responsible for any portion of your mother's funeral expenses. When did your mother pass away?
April 22nd, 2007.
And it is my understanding that her primary asset was a life insurance policy. Is
That's
that correct?
correct.
Did she have any other assets other than this life insurance policy?
She had a few $100s in a bank account that I used to pay for the nursing home.
Other than the life insurance policy, did she have a home? Did she have a car?
No.
Did she have bonds? Anything else?
No.
Life insurance policy?
Yes.
And how much was the life insurance policy?
I don't know the total amount. We each got a portion of it. It was $2,082.74 a piece times 8. So a little over $17,000.
And insurance policy, I assume it was from work? Or?
Correct. It came out of her pension.
So it was a pension?
Right.
And it is also my understanding from your complaint that there was no named beneficiary on the policy.
That's correct.
So far, are we correct on that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
So, only asset is a $17,000 life insurance policy, correct?
Yes.
You have 7 siblings.
That's correct.
Correct. Your mother did not have a will.
No, she did not.
So you decided, I assume, that you had been taking care of her business?
Correct.
You didn't object to that?
I didn't object. I didn't know I was objecting to because she never consulted me on anything.
Don't give me a lot of baloney.
Carolyn Kruger says her brother, Kevin Perks, refuses to pay his share of their mother's funeral. Kevin says he shouldn't have to.
Now, when you went to visit her, did you take charge of her medical care, of overseeing her stay in the nursing home? Did you take care of her other business, or did you just go and visit her?
I just went and visited her.
So you knew somebody had to be taking care of that.
That's correct.
And who did you think was taking care of that business?
Carolyn.
There we go. And you didn't object to that?
No, I did not.
Perfect. Now, you did receive a portion of this life insurance, did you not?
That's correct.
How much did you receive?
$2,076 and some change. I don't know the exact amount.
When your mother passed away in April of 2007, did she pass away in the same town where you live?
Yes.
Did you go to the funeral?
Yes.
Did you put on a suit?
Yes.
You married?
Fiance.
Did your fiance go with you?
Yes, she did.
Do you have children?
Yes, we do.
Did you bring your children to the funeral?
Yes.
So they went to their grandmother's funeral?
Yes.
Were there flowers at the funeral?
Yes.
Was there a grave site that you went to?
Yes.
Did you ever stop to say to yourself, who's paying for this? Mr. Parks,
No.
did you ever stop to say to yourself, who's paying for this?
Yes.
Did you think the burial fairy was paying for it?
No.
No. So you knew that somebody had to be paying for it.
That's correct.
Okay. And who did you think? Put your hand down. Who'd you think that was?
The life insurance policy.
Right. Look how smart you are. You thought that her life insurance policy was paying for it, right?
That's correct.
Put your hand down. It did. All your brothers and sisters kicked in from the life insurance policy to pay for the funeral, except you. That's what the case is all about. Now, your sister could very easily have said, I am going to take all the proceeds of this life insurance policy, and I'm going to pay the $6,000 for Mom's funeral, and whatever is left over, I'm going to give it to my brothers and sisters. Right?
That's correct.
Well, that's what you thought happened. Instead, your sister decided to do what she considered the right thing, which was name each of you as a beneficiary on the life insurance policy. You all got your money, and everybody divided the $6,000 or whatever it was for the funeral and sent her a check for their portion. Go!
Well, Your Honor, the life insurance policy, normally most life insurance policy, they have a provision, or the funeral home has an agreement where you can have a form filled out to have the life insurance policy paid for it, the funeral expense itself. She never told me about this expense whatsoever. A week after I got the check, I never heard anything from her, never agreed to it, never paid anything. She didn't consult me about it, nothing.
So? And your point would be?
I should have consulted further on...
I'm consulting you right now. I'm consulting you. Who's supposed to pay for your mother's funeral? Not you. You have no legal obligation to pay for your mother's funeral. None. But you have no right to accept full proceeds of a life insurance policy, which by law is supposed to pay for her funeral expenses before it's dispersed to any beneficiary. Do you understand?
Yes.
Perfect. So it was done a little bit backwards. Instead of taking the money out and then put your hand down. Does it sound like you're losing?
No, I'm sorry.
So instead of taking the $6,000 out and paying for the policy and then distributing it to you, she distributed it to the siblings and then says, okay, brothers and sisters, now send me a check. It's the same thing. Do you understand?
Yes.
You don't have to be consulted about that, sir. This one wants to say something. I'm just dying to hear what she has to say. Dying to hear what she has to say.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but during the funeral and everything that was at the funeral, as far as the casket, the flowers, anything, Kevin was not allowed or invited to pick any of that stuff out.
Was he invited to pick out who the nurses were going to be at his mother?
Your Honor.
Pay attention to what I'm saying to you. Was he consulted, and did he make himself responsible for his mother's care in the nursing home where she was?
He had no choice.
Of course he had a choice. Did he have a choice to pick you?
Yes.
Then he had a choice to pick where his mother went and who took care of her and participating in her care. He chose not to do that. Just as he chose, madam, listen to me very carefully, he chose to let somebody else take the responsibility for picking out a casket, for picking out flowers. It was not as if he wasn't invited to the funeral. He went with you and his children. He just made himself dumb, which I have a feeling isn't much of a stretch. You owe your sister your share of your mother's funeral. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. How much was it?
$750.
Judgment for the plaintiff, that's all.
Jonathan Kwasniewski claims he was an uninvited guest at a party when he was attacked by Luke Archibek and his friends. Jonathan says his jaw was broken and he was knocked out cold.
Mr. Kwasniewski, it is your claim that the defendant assaulted you at a house party. He says he did not assault you. He knows that you were injured. He doesn't know how that happened. He certainly knows it wasn't him. When and where was this party?
It was on March 25th, 26th. I'm not sure where it was at.
What do you mean you're not sure where it was at?
Well, I don't know the cross streets where it was at. It was in Arvada, Colorado.
Who took you there?
My brother, he got a call from our friend Joel that there was a party going on, and sure enough, a bunch of guys not having anything to do, we decided to go.
So you weren't invited by the people who were throwing the party?
Yes.
And as far as you know, none of your group was invited. You just were told that there was a party, and you showed up?
Yes.
How many of you showed up?
4, including myself.
And where had you been before?
We were at a buddy's house just hanging out, playing pool.
Drinking?
No, his parents were there. We were just hanging out, looking for something to do.
So you got there about 11:30. And how many people were at the party when you got there?
Roughly 40, 35 maybe.
Were you introduced to the people who were throwing the party?
Not necessarily people who were throwing the party, but who, were just there already.
Do you know who was throwing the party?
I don't.
Who would that be, Mr. Archibek?
It was actually my friend Scott Hodges. It was his birthday party at the time, and there was actually more like about 100 people there, and there was plenty of alcohol, and everybody was intoxicated at the time.
Why don't you not volunteer information that I didn't ask for, sir?
Sorry, ma'am.
I know you want to get it all out. I do things in a very orderly, organized fashion.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it?
Got it.
So it was your friend whose party?
Scott Hodges.
Scott Hodges. You see, if you just concentrated on answering my question, I would have understood you.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Did you know who Scott Hodges was?
No, ma'am.
Who were you?
Friend.
Did you know who Scott Hodges was?
No, ma'am.
How old was Scott Hodges?
He just turned 21 at the time.
And this was at his parents' house?
Yes, ma'am.
And they were in or out?
They were indisposed at the time. They were not in.
They weren't indisposed?
Well, they're out, yeah. I'm sorry.
They weren't home?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so tell me what happened when you got there, sir.
We get there and we see that there's hardly any alcohol left, none at all. So we're, wanting to entertain ourselves, just talking around, meeting new people. And I'm just sitting there and I'm talking to this one fellow, Corey. And, I'm talking to him, he has a big scar on his face. He said he got hit with a bat, so conversation goes on. He sees my friend Jeff and his twin brother. And he says, I know you guys that jumped my friend. And he started getting, worked up. So I'm saying, hey, Corey, just, relax, just, pat him on the back. Next thing, he pushes me off and says, get the F off me. So I'm like, whoa, okay. So as soon as that happens, the whole crowd looks at me like I did something wrong. Almost as if I punched him in the face, just out of nowhere. So the whole crowd looks at me with just everybody staring at me, just wanting to beat me up. And I turn around and some kid hits me in the face, just punches me in the face. And I'm standing there like,
what in the heck is going on? And Jeff comes up and says, Quas, no, don't mess around with this because we're outnumbered. You know, it's like 4 of us and 100 of them. Okay, and so I'm like, okay, some guy gets in my face, talks crap, you know, I don't do anything. I say, I'm sorry. Another kid gets in my face, you know, says, well, you're going to pay for what you did. I was like, I didn't do anything, you know. Another kid gets in my face, blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know is I'm getting helped up, and I don't remember anything. And when I came to, I was missing my shoes, my face hurt, I don't even remember what happened. I barely even remember jumping the fence because we were trying to get away from those guys.
Okay, so you ended up, according to your complaint, in an emergency room. Do you have the emergency room records?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to take a look at them, please. You have the police report?
Yes.
I'd like to take a look at that, too. Anybody arrested for this assault?
No.
You were there with 2 brothers.
My brother and his brother.
What's your name, sir?
Jeff.
Jeff what?
Gerber.
Stand up, sir. When, for the first time, sir, did you speak to the police?
I spoke to the police about 4 days afterwards, after this happened.
And what prompted you to speak to the police 4 days afterwards?
They had called me. He went into the doctor's the day after, and he filed the police report then, so I was just waiting for them to contact me so I can give them my side of the story.
And when you spoke to the police, what did you tell them, Jeff?
I told them that we went to a party where there was drinking and there was people.
Did you drink?
No, we were only there for about 10 minutes before this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And
But everybody else was drinking because there was no alcohol left by the time you got there.
Yeah, it was a party, so there was about 100 people, like he said.
Well, I just said that when he got there, the alcohol was all gone, which means everybody was pretty well loaded.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And as we were sitting in the back porch of the house, and Corey is the one that had started talking to me about a previous fight that I had been in about a year before that even happened with one of his friends, and tried to get all huff and puffy and tough, and started cussing and saying all sorts of stuff. And then, you know, he had challenged me to fight him, and then he had challenged John here to fight him out on the back of the lawn, and pretty much everybody heard that and just started coming outside and what's going on? And then I had seen John here get punched by a kid, I believe his name was Scott.
Okay, so he got punched by a guy named Scott.
He got punched by a guy named Scott, and then I told John here to just lay off. We don't want to get, jumped here. And then just every kid thought we were out to get him, so every kid was getting in our faces. And then I looked to my right, I'm standing like with my back towards the building, the house, and I looked to my right, and John here gets sucker punched. He wasn't looking, he was facing forward, while Luke here ran up next to him from his right and sucker punched him in his face.
When was the first time you met Luke?
That night.
Never seen him before?
Never.
When, for the first time that evening, had you seen Luke?
Right after he punched him.
So you had not seen him before that evening?
Mm-mm.
That was the first time you saw him? And when was the next time you saw him?
Here.
When you were interviewed by the police 4 days later, you told them that you could identify the person who
They didn't
assaulted
even
him?
ask me that. They already knew it was Luke.
Don't tell me what the police knew. I'm looking at the police reports, and I don't see anything about Luke here.
They,
What?
Ma'am, I was never contacted by anybody.
Shh. You mean you spoke to the police? Did they come to your house?
Oh, they had called me on my cell phone.
Called you on your cell phone? Did you give them the number?
For him?
Yes. Why did you give them the number?
Because he was there, he was a witness.
And so I assume that you wanted the police to locate the person who caused this injury to you.
I would have loved to, except I didn't know who had punched
But
him.
the reason you gave the police Jeff's number is because you wanted the police to find the person who had hurt you.
Yes, ma'am.
And Jeff knew the person who had hurt you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Jeff tells me that when he spoke to the police, he didn't tell them the name of the person who hurt you because they didn't ask him. Is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
Well, what questions did they ask you, Jeff?
They asked me exactly who and what happened. I gave them my side of the
Just a second. So you said who and what happened, just like I did. What did you see and what did you do? You just told me that you saw this young man, who you've identified as Luke, throw the sucker punch at your friend.
Well,
Right? That's what you just told me. Why were you keeping that a secret from the police?
I didn't keep it a secret. I didn't know his name. How I found out his name is that I have a buddy that knows of him, and he had contacted them somehow and found out that his name was Luke. And that's how we all know. And I recognized him once I saw him. Yeah, that's the kid that punched him.
So what you're telling me is 4 days later, You didn't tell the police that you could identify the person who punched him.
I could identify him.
And the police asked you nothing else?
They asked me his name. They didn't ask me what he looked like because obviously he'd be wearing something different 4 days later.
I'm not talking about what he was wearing, sir. This happened 9 months ago. And the first time you've seen him, after you saw him for a moment at this party 9 months ago, was here in court.
Mm-hmm.
And for how long did you see him? You saw him for the first time when he punched your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? You saw him run away.
What had happened is that after I saw him punch him, I had rushed up to him and pushed him off, pushed him away, and then that's how his image of his face stuck in my head, and that's when everybody started jumping me, my brother, and his brother.
Okay. On your own 2 feet, sir.
Yes, ma'am. What happened was I was downstairs and I was drinking and everything, and yes, my friend Corey was with me at the time, and we were downstairs.
This is Corey?
Yes, ma'am.
You're the Corey?
No, different Corey. No, not that Corey. But we were downstairs and we were drinking and everything like that, and then this girl comes downstairs and tells me that everyone's fighting out back and that Scott called for some people to come break it up. So we run upstairs, and by the time I get up there, everybody's already fighting. Like I said, it was not me who threw the punch and everything. It was actually my friend that I consort with, and actually that's how I think they know me, is through my friend because we look alike, but no, it was not me.
Oh, so you know who hit him?
Well, yes.
You know who hit him?
Yes, kind of. Like...
No.
Yeah.
Listen to me. So you look very much like him.
Yes, ma'am.
What's his name?
Brian.
Brian what? Look at me. And how do you know that Brian hit him?
Just word around.
Did you tell that? Look at me. Did you tell that to the police?
No, ma'am. Like I said, I've never came in contact with any police officers.
You know the name Brian?
No, ma'am.
You don't? No. Well, you didn't know anybody at this party. You just showed up. Very stupid. You're the other Corey.
Yes, ma'am.
What's your last name?
Clendenning.
Were you downstairs drinking?
I was actually downstairs, not drinking, but yes, I was there.
Tell me what you observed when you went upstairs.
Just a lot of people out back scuffling around, grabbing each other, swinging. It was pretty hectic.
You know this person, Brian?
Yes, I know of him.
You know of him?
Yeah.
Was he at the party?
Yes.
Did you see him up there during the scuffle?
Yes.
Did you see the plaintiff assaulted?
I saw him down when I was outside. When I came out, he was already down.
Did you come up from the basement with the defendant?
I was probably 5 feet behind him.
So you came up together?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you came up together, the plaintiff was already on the ground?
From what it looks like, yes. I mean, there were so many people, and it was him. There was Jeff Lance, which is Jeff's twin brother.
So you know them?
Yes.
How old are you, sir?
20 years old.
What do you do for a living?
I used to work at Lucky Strikes. Now I work for a Coors Brewing Company.
Did you have a lot to drink that night?
I didn't drink at all because I was with my girlfriend. She's kind of judgmental and all that.
I believe you. Anything else you want to tell me?
Yeah. Why would all my friends and his friends tell me that it's him that hit me and not Brian?
Let me explain something to you, sir. That's hearsay.
Right, but Jeff can recognize Luke. Jeff punched Luke in the face.
You have to make a determination when you sit as a fact finder as to whether or not 9 months later, after glimpsing at somebody for a second during a fight, you can make an identification. And I have to be very satisfied, even though this is a civil proceeding, that if I'm going to find somebody guilty of assaulting you, I'm going to find the right person guilty of assaulting you. So what do we have? We have clearly you were injured. Your jaw was wired up?
Yes.
You were pretty well knocked around? There's no question that somebody during that fight, this one person or more than one person, got the best of you.
Yeah.
No question about that. But you don't know who it was.
Well,
you don't know who it was.
Ma'am, he did the same exact thing to his best friend a month later. Ask him. Go ahead.
I'm not asking him. I don't have his best friend here. This is not a free-for-all. This is not a one-stop shopping. What you have, sir, is a case where you say this young man assaulted you. He may have. But what I'm telling you is, sir, if this is your friend and your friend found out the name of the person who assaulted you 4 or 5 months later, which believe, then his responsibility is to call the police and say, I found out the name of the person. This is his name, because you have a serious assault. Police would have taken him into custody, put him in a lineup, and said, can you pick out the person who you claim committed? It's not an appropriate lineup. 9 months later, when you come into court, and there's one person standing in the defendant's spot, and your friend 9 months later says, well, now I remember. I saw him for a moment 9 months ago, and that's the person. That doesn't give me a secure feeling about saying to him, you're the person who assaulted the plaintiff. Do you understand? Good. Case is dismissed. That's all.
20-year-old suing her former friend, 19-year-old Eric Smith, for the cost to bail him out of jail after he was arrested for unpaid speeding tickets.
Miss Hubbard, you claim that Mr. Smith owes you money for bailing him out of jail.
Yes.
And Mr. Smith acknowledges that you bailed him out of jail, but he said that that was your choice. He never agreed to pay you back the money, right?
Yes.
How old are you?
19.
What do you do to keep yourself occupied?
I'm a full-time student and I work.
Full-time student where?
Longview Community College, Kansas City, Missouri.
And you work for whom?
Walgreens.
And what were you arrested for, Mr. Smith?
On speeding charges, tickets that I didn't pay, warrants.
Speeding, tickets, warrants. How many?
8.
How do you manage to get all these tickets if you're a full-time student and working at Walgreens?
What it was when I was in high school, I racked up a lot of tickets, like speeding tickets, and I didn't have a job in high school because I played football, and I didn't work and I never paid them off.
And how do you know Miss Hubbard?
I met her at the club.
Now, were you dating each other or you just knew her?
It was like kind of like that in-between thing where not really friends, but not really together either.
I see. Who is this smiling person over here?
This is my friend Robin.
How long have you known Robin?
About 6 years now.
So he's a good friend of yours?
Yes.
Better friend to you than Miss Hubbard, right?
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Well, he schlepped all the way to court with you, didn't he?
Yeah.
From Missouri?
Yeah, from Missouri.
And who do you live with?
I stay with my dad right now.
So you have a father?
Yes.
And I guess he's known you for at least 19 years, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have a mother?
Yes.
She's known you for at least 19 years.
Yes.
Now, Robin here, he didn't bail you out of jail.
No, he didn't.
So he must not like you so much.
Nah.
And your father didn't bail you out of jail, right?
Right.
He didn't like you so much.
No.
Your mother didn't bail you out of jail,
No.
right? She didn't like you so much.
No.
You have grandparents?
Yes.
Yeah, how many?
I actually have one.
Grandmother?
Yeah, grandmother.
She didn't bail you out of jail either.
No, she didn't know, actually.
I guarantee you she knew.
Okay.
So how long were all these loving people who were really attached to you, how long did they let you sit in jail when you got arrested?
The whole time.
How long was that?
That was 3 weeks.
3 weeks? I mean, we're not talking about we'll let him stay overnight to teach him a lesson, right? We're letting Mr. Full-Time Student Employee at Walgreens stay in jail 3 weeks. But then, according to what I managed to put together here, they were going to move you from one jail to another because you served your time on a whole bunch of tickets in one county, but then there were other counties looking for you. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yeah.
You ever hear of a man for all seasons? This is a man for all counties. So when they were going to move you, somehow Miss Hubbard bailed you out of jail.
Yes.
Were you happy to be out of jail?
Yes, I was.
How happy were you?
I was very excited.
And how did Miss Hubbard find out that they were going to move you from one jail to another?
I told her.
You told her?
Yeah, I told her.
Did you tell your mother?
No, I didn't tell my mother.
Did you tell your father?
Yes, I told him.
Did you tell Robin?
No, I didn't tell Robin.
Didn't tell Robin either,
No,
but
I
you
didn't.
told your father?
Yes.
And what'd your father say? Bye.
Yeah.
But not Miss Hubbard.
No.
She bailed you out.
Yes.
So what do you think you ought to do?
I told her thank you. I did. I told her thank you.
You told her thank you?
Yeah, I told her thank you. I never agreed to pay her back, so.
What did you say when you called her?
I just told her the situation, that I was done serving my time at that jail and that they were transferring me to a different jail. And she didn't want to see me in jail no more than I wanted to see myself in jail. So she proceeded to bail me out.
Oh, okay. Now, Miss Hubbard, why don't you tell me how it came about that you bailed him out of jail?
Well, he caught me July 19th, which was a Thursday. I knew he was going to the next jail the next day. So he basically talked about how he was tired of being there and that he didn't want to serve the day